Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gauntlet Audience Interactive Dungeons and Dragons Combat Chaos usually. Hello, welcome on in, you fine human beings. We are doing a talkback episode tonight. That's right, everybody. Tonight is the night. The night that this happens. The night that the big heckin' update is about to happen. So we are very excited for this today. Big excitement. We are all going to be updating to the new 2024 Player's Handbook, and we are going to be talking with the individual performers about what's going to be going on with their characters, what's changing, and then after that we are going to be hosting a roundtable with everyone to talk about how they're feeling. This is going to be a little bit informal here tonight because we're still learning. A lot of this process tonight is going to be all of us sort of finding out together what this is going to be looking at. We've had this book for a little while, but as you probably could guess, putting characters all the way up to level 17 again for the second time is it's a whole ding dang thing. So we're going to be doing this together, and we are so excited to have you along for this ride. Thank you so very much for being here tonight. Really quickly, I'm going to say hey howdy to some of the folks who are joining us here. We have Lister's Mate, Zagmeister 3, Witch King 1 of 9. We have Annabelle. We have oh, I lost track of myself. There we go. Inquisitor Ameridan, Dragon Dad 88 coming on in. A couple of sneaky embezzle subscriptions coming on by as well. Some embezzle biddies coming on through. Heck yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So on that, I suppose that takes us right around to the first person we are going to be chatting with tonight. We are going to welcome on in Zanai Bug. So good to have you here. Okay. So on that note, we are going to be talking to each individual performer on their own about what's going to be happening with their character, and we are going to be doing this in alphabetical order of character first name because it's as good a way to organize this as anything else. So that means that first we are going to be talking to our very own Astrid. So real quick, just as a heads up for technical reasons, there's going to be a little bit of a like bloop bloop in between these calls really quickly here. So give us a quick second and we're going to talk to our very own Zara. Welcome on in, Z. Hello.
Hello.
So good to have you here tonight. Oh my goodness gracious.
Good to be here.
Okay, so we are going to be chatting about what's happening with Astrid, what's new, what's different, and any lingering questions you have at this point. Because that's also a large part of this is just making sure we're all
Yes.
feeling good. So, what's going to be different for Astrid?
Um, so yeah, it was interesting kind of going through everything from the beginning again. Um, so I I went with the same background that I had before because it was still there. Which interestingly gave me alert feat, um, which I was the first feat I had taken
Mm-hmm.
originally. So that was cool, and I got to decide a new feat at what was it, fourth?
Fourth. That would have been at fourth.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also a thing that's really important that now would be a very good time to talk about is that some of these characters are going to change a little bit, primarily because there's going to be some things like this where you got access to a feat much earlier that you would have already had, so you would have made some alternative choices. And we're trying to keep that honest a little bit to a degree and try and think about the choices we would have made with these characters if this had been the book we'd been with the whole time. So, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of some changing around. But yeah. Um, so what did you decide to take instead? Well, not instead, but in addition to alert.
Yeah. So I ended up taking Stay Touch,
Okay.
which I thought would be interesting first since it is from the Feywild.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought it would be a fun thing, and honestly, you get Misty Step.
Yep.
Uh, like, oh, so Astrid can teleport. Cool.
Extra
And that,
mobility, always good.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I thought that would be super fun. So that's what I chose. I think more or less from here on out, I copied what I did level to level
Okay.
um from before just because I didn't feel like there was anything that I really wanted to shift. I think the only thing other than that I kind of switched around a little bit. Oh, I had to choose weapon mastery.
That's right. What did
So
we go with?
I did short bow and pistol since now it's usually Astrid is using the short bow or the thunderbuss
The
at this point.
Thunderboss. Delightful.
Yes. They have the same kind of perk to them, or
Mm.
like they have the Vex uh quality. So um if I hit and do damage, I get advantage
Okay.
thing, which is pretty cool and great for sneak attack. Um so yeah, so then other than that, I mostly chose the same spells. I
Okay.
just switched a couple around. I'm trying to think. Oh, I chose Mind Sliver.
Okay.
Um
And is this
I
primarily
was
because you can do different schools now, right? As a
yeah, so
yes.
now I have a wider range. I think I can do all wizard spells.
Right. And is it's still called Arcane Trickster, right? Your subclass?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, originally you only had access to was it Illusion and what was the other one?
The transmutation.
It
No,
was
I can't
something. It was
remember.
something else.
Jeff
Yeah.
would know. But
I know one of them was Illusion. But
yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I decided I thought it would be interesting for some of them. I picked a couple more spells with psychic damage just because I feel like Astrid has progressed as a character. I thought doing psychic damage with like a fun little flavor to her since she's kind of gotten snarkier a little bit as time has gone on. Um, and what else? Oh, I took shield
Okay.
um because it's nice to have, and as a squishier, you know, little rogue, sometimes it's nice to have that little protection
Yeah.
for you. And what else? I think I took off Jim's magic missile. You had been you had been kind enough to let me get away with that before.
Yeah. And honestly, it was in it for the joke, to be perfectly honest with you. Like
Exactly.
at a certain point, I should say the ruling on that, and it's gotten loosier as time has gone on. Originally, when we made the gauntlet, we only allowed things that came through 100% original D&D publications. So we didn't allow things from other actual plays or anything from homebrew settings or from third-party publishers. Uh, Mostly because we just wanted to keep it like in the spirit of what was published. And that's good, that's completely fine. But sometimes there's a joke that's just really funny, like gluten-free magic missile.
Yeah. How can you
Sometimes it's just
edit that?
funnier when you let people do things that are just if it's just a good joke.
Yeah.
And that was especially funny largely because of Jeffrey and his gluten intolerance. So
It's gluten freeness.
it's gluten free.
Yeah.
So
So
uh
I switched it for regular magic.
regular magic
Um,
missile now. Okay.
yeah.
No
Great.
longer gluten free will
No
actually
longer
hurt
gluten,
Pan.
just a regular.
So if you ever get that, here's the real question: if you ever get one of us and Pan is on the same episode, will Pan take extra damage if you hit him with magic missile?
I mean, I think that's up to you. And I think it's up to Jeff to decide if Pan is also allergic to gluten.
apparently, according to Jeff, who is in the chat, that Pan is not allergic to gluten. And these
Oh,
are,
oh, how convenient for you to
yeah,
decide that
I guess
right
these are the
now.
decisions we make.
Separate.
Um, that's fair. I largely make my players not allergic to cats because I want to snuffle them all on their cute little
Yeah.
faces, and I suffer when I do that in real life. So that's fair. I guess I get
Yeah.
it. Okay, but yes.
Um,
So spell updates.
yeah, so got some spell updates. I think those are the big ones. Yeah, just switched out a couple spells for ones with like more psychic damage because I thought I could have a little bit more fun with that.
Okay.
Um, the only other big difference is because of some of the feats that I have and just the changes. My dex and intelligence scores went up.
Oh, okay.
So before my dex was 19 and my intelligence was 16, they're 20.
Okay.
Um, I'm at 5 and 4 with those,
Really
which is
quick, you broke up just a little bit when you were telling
oh
us about those changes. Do you mind just telling me
yeah,
one more time?
yeah. Yeah. So the my dex is 20 and my intelligence is 18. Before they were 19.
Oh, right during the part where you were saying the numbers that they are now. One more time for us, Sarah, for the
Of course,
masses.
interwebs. Um,
Exactly when you're saying the part that's important too.
so my dex used to be 19,
Okay.
and now it is
And now it is 20. Okay.
and my intelligence used to be 16.
Used to be 16.
Now it is 8.
And now is 18. And are those because of the extra feats that you then got to take?
Yeah, it was because of feats and I think like very, then ability score improvements. Yeah, I'd have to look into it a little bit more because numbers just started going crazy. And I was trying to figure it out. But yeah, I think it was just like some of the shifts and um of
Okay.
yeah, the various that I did. So
All right.
exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then there's just the cool fun thing about sneak attack.
Yes, your sneak attacks got a
Yeah,
big old fat update. Do we want to chat about that real quick?
yeah, yeah. We can chat about that. Here, I'm bringing it up in the book. So
I will do the same. The internet is updating slower with this. So we've gotten real spoiled with the Gauntlet Season 2. We've been able to do a lot of it fairly completely digitally, and now we're finding ourselves back with a little bit of pen and paper for the time being, especially since we have a bunch of characters that are using older stuff and newer stuff. So while we all learn where things are in the book, I don't know about anyone else. I keep flipping to about where things used to be in the old book and then being like, why am I in a completely different section of the book? All right, let's start talking about your sneak attacks and what you're excited for.
yeah. So I can basically take out a die in my sneak attack, which now I'm up to 96.
All right.
Um, and I can take out one die to either poison, trip, uh, or withdraw. So, the poison would be I would have to have a poisoner's kit. So that is
Yes.
a more specific sort of thing. But trip and withdraw are really cool. Because the tripping, it says if the target is large or smaller, it must succeed on a dex saving throw or have the prone could be huge.
Yes. Yeah, being able to
Um,
manipulate the battlefield a little bit more is always fun.
yeah, yeah, just kind of taking if we're having trouble with something, taking it down a little bit. And then withdraw says immediately after the attack, you can move up to half your speed without provoking opportunity.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool. I can move my full speed and then move a little bit more if I want to and not get any opportunity attack.
Always nice, especially for, I believe, still our canonically squishiest character in the Gauntlet
Yep,
season 2.
yep, yep. Still under 100.
You should listen in when I think when we're gonna get to Stonebreaker, there might be some anger. Based on what I've heard about what's happening.
Oh God, how high is this?
We'll get there when we get to S.
God, I'm scared.
But yeah, definitely giving you a little bit more mobility and giving yourself a little bit more defense is going to be
Yeah,
good because
yeah,
of
and
that.
because
That's always
my
the trade with rogues.
yeah, because my dex went up and with alert, like my initiative is now plus 11,
Oh, that's great.
and my AC went up one with
Okay.
my studded leather armor, so I'm at 17.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. So a couple little shifts. Still same old Astrid, just with a couple new
Couple new bells
fun
and whistles.
abilities.
All right. Also, welcome on in Omega Scales. So good to have you. Also, really quickly, I am trying to keep my eyes on chat. If anyone has any character specific questions, feel free to pop them on in, and I will do my very best to get them to the players as I possibly can. We can also, if that you don't see them, we're gonna have a roundtable at the end, so feel free to hit us up. Okay. Well, I think that's probably about it for the changes with
That's it.
Astrid. Okay. Well, isn't that exciting? I think then that's going to bring us to the end of this particular part of the discussion, Z. So we're going to see you at the round table.
You at the end.
See you at the end. All right. Real quick, we're just going to do that. And we're just going to wait because our next player is going to be Camber. So whenever Camber is ready to join us, whenever I see him pop on into this particular moment, we're just waiting for RJ. Awesome.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome on in, RJ. Oh gosh, I think there's something happening about pineapples on pizza. I don't know what's happening. Anyway, welcome on in, RJ.
I mean, I am always a fan of pineapple on pizza.
Thank you. This is why we've been friends for as long as we have been.
True.
Uh,
This is the reason.
Okay, RJ, so let's talk all things Camber and what we're going to be having change.
Oh, yes.
Because I think Rangers have been a class of all of them that have had the most intensive updates, I think, in the time that I've been playing D&D. But alternatively, because a lot of those updates happened in the last time they did this update when they did Tasha's, your character has gotten somehow like the most and also the least updates during this time.
I was really interested to see what changed in this update because to me that demonstrated where and how Wizards decided, well, this didn't live up to expectations.
Yeah.
And when I finally got the physical book in hand, I was surprised to see that a lot of the official core book simply just adopted the Tasha's alternate features
Yeah.
into actuality, um, which it actually is a good thing in my opinion overall. Much has been debated in the past month or so, 6 weeks or so, since the playtest material has come out and the official rulebook has come out about whether or not um, the optional material in Tasha's um, should have been considered made official, because I guess this is news to me that there are some communities and some tables out there that did not allow Tasha's features to be
Yep.
used at their table. So now that this material is actually officially published, I think it's amazing that it is now used as the baseline level for all rangers going forward, and I love that.
Yeah.
The ranger originally, when I started playing D&D, was a class that I was not excited about. It was not. I looked at the character approach and the you know the mechanics of what you could do as a game with this character in a way that always felt lackluster. But then once Fizbins came out, where I got my subclass, the Drake Warden Ranger, and then the
Mm-hmm.
Tasha's updates really demonstrated a big boost to the creativity and the versatility and the utility of Rangers, which is super fun. So with the publishing of this new book, it's amazing to see that that's the baseline that we get. So on the very beginning, like, you as the audience are not going to see too much different from Camber's overall features, because I was utilizing Natasha's alternate features heavily. That's what I
Yeah.
really wanted. It's what spoke to me as a player and what allowed me in the Gauntlet to really demonstrate Camber's versatility and his capabilities. Um, However, there are a lot of minute changes that had big ripple effects in how I started updating this. So we can go that kind of piece by piece if you want.
Yeah. Let's go
Yeah,
through some of the changes, just kind of, beginning on up. And
sure.
while we're doing that, just like the big thing I would say that you made me think of, we can talk about this more with the roundtable, that like I want to make sure folks know, chase your joy. Play what at the
Hmm.
table is fun for you, for the love of all that's good and holy. It's a game. We should be having a good time.
Yeah.
We are fond enough of these changes that we decided to update.
Hmm.
So that is what we are going to do. And
Totally.
chase your joy. And this is us chasing our joy as much as we possibly can. But yeah, so let's talk about these changes for Camber. I know, I mean, you're only our second one coming on in, but you're, because your subclass is not in this book, you're going to be the first one that we're talking about some of the like stuff we're doing to get these two to work together. So let's get
Yeah,
rolling.
yeah. So the first kind of major thing that started off when remaking Camber is I started as a level 1 fighter as opposed to level 1 ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I took in the first go around, I took fighter as uh, a multi-class later because I wanted to add more martial versatility to Camber.
Yeah.
Um, Knowing now that I have 17 levels to work with, starting fighter gives me Constitution saving throw proficiencies, which is pretty big as Rangers being a partial caster.
Yeah.
A lot of the spells that I utilize in the Gauntlet have concentration, so getting a bump to my Constitution saving throws will help me out sustaining
Yeah.
those over the rounds and rounds and the rooms and rooms. So I made
Yeah.
that pretty big change. Overall, though, because I'm only taking 3 levels of fighter, the rest of that doesn't really matter too much.
Yeah, and that it was a big thing that I know you and I discussed, and ultimately, the big thing that you're going to hear for a lot of the players talking about tonight, folks, is like, yeah, changes were made as long as they were honest, and that felt like a
Mhm.
very honest change for Camber, like him coming in as a ranger versus a fighter. Either one worked perfectly fine, so I'm super
Yeah,
here for it. And it gives you a little bit more versatility, and that's part of what this update we're doing.
yeah. So that's kind of the one. That's like a very simple mechanical change. That is important for the rest of Camber's build out. The next thing that comes up actually is, as mentioned with Astrid, weapon masteries. As a fighter,
Yes.
you get 3 weapon masters that you can utilize. Um, hint: weapon mastery stack. So if you multi-class with
Mm-hmm.
classes that give you weapon masteries, you can expand upon those. So overall, Camber at character level 17 knows 5 weapon masteries. Pretty much
That's
anything
great.
I come across, I can utilize its mastery. It's pretty dang cool. So the ones I went with for those to start off with were we got short bow, dagger, and scimitar.
Excellent.
Which gives me great diversity. I believe those are Nick, Slow, and Vex.
Yes.
So you'll be able to now. Before I had lots of options with how to capitalize on my martial prowess. Now I have more of those at my
Yeah.
disposal,
And
which is super fun.
how are you feeling about the updates with again, we'll chat more a little bit about this probably at the round table, but just to give a quick like how you're feeling. How are you feeling about the weapons masteries as a concept?
I think
'Cause
they're
they're
super
new.
cool. I definitely think that there are some that stand out more than others. Um, but each player that's assigned to build a martial character usually starts with their weapon of choice. I'm a half orc and I want to hold a great club. That's my weapon. Now
Mm-hmm.
that great club, you specializing in wielding that gives you some additional tactical advantage, and that's super cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
so when I originally started to build out Camber as like um, this ranged martial character, I took all the feats and I focused on the skills that require me to capitalize on that. And then I discovered later on, once we got to like level like 10 or 11, I was like, oh, if somebody gets up to me, I don't really have the same tactical advantage when they're up close and personal, even though I am a pretty heavily multi-classed soldier. So now I'm great with the short bow. I have awesome stats to help me, you know, hit anybody all over the field. But if an enemy happens to close that gap or, magically teleports 40 feet across the field up in my face, I can stow my short bow, draw a couple weapons from, my belt, and still have the same effectiveness,
Be able
which
to
is
be
super fun.
versatility. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So the rest of the fighter features are pretty much the same. I still get action surge. I can utilize now a use of second wind to boost a skill check, which is
That's
super fun.
right. Yeah.
And what is it? The maneuvers are the same. Yeah, so now I get two uh second wins per long rest. One of them, of course, both can be used to give myself some extra HP with the bonus action. But if I come across, an athletics check or an animal handling check or a nature check that you need me to make, and I come up a little short, I can add a D10 to that roll, which could swing it in a huge way.
Yeah. Real quick, we did have a question come through, listeners. May I see your question? I think I'm going to answer
Sure.
that one at the round table. So, all right, let's keep rolling.
All right. So that's pretty much it for fighter.
Okay.
Ranger. I'm going to pull up the build out here because
Yeah.
there's a great amount to talk about. Okay, what do I want to talk about most? Okay.
Yeah, what's different? Let's start there. Like, as far as just like even just straight up stat numbers, what do we got that's different? Anything particularly?
So taking the keeping my base stats the same from where we started the campaign with the soldier background, as well as the taking the soldier background actually helps out bump my dexterity quite a bit. Now, with a few, the same choices that I made along the way with the 2014 rules, my dexterity now is 20 through a couple feats, through my background, and an ASI that I took, I think at level 8.
Yeah.
I've capped my dex, which is
Excellent.
great. Yeah, AC goes up, or sorry, my initiative goes up a little bit, my dexterity goes up a little bit.
Yeah.
My AC can be adjusted slightly if I change out my armor, but that's it.
Yeah, because you're
a
in
minor thing.
medium armor, correct?
I'm in half plate. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Been there.
Um,
Yep.
I get a fighting style as a fighter, but I also get a fighting style as a ranger. So I get two fighting styles now, which actually lets me change things around the way things went. So because the soldier background gives me the savage attacker feat,
Hmm.
which is almost exactly the same as the piercer feat. You and I discussed this a couple
We
nights ago pretty in
did.
depthly. We had a great analysis of how to interpret that. Um, it let me forego taking the piercer feat to then swap out and take dual wielder. Because both dual wielder and piercer bump my dexterity score by one, which is good. Uh, I decided that foregoing the extra damage dice granted on a critical hit with piercer, and only if capitalizes on piercing damage, savage attacker lets me re-roll any weapon's damage.
Yeah.
So with the short bow, that's re-rolling both of those dice, as opposed to the piercer feat, which only re-rolls the original piercing damage. So that's overall a, a more impactful effect.
Yeah.
And then taking dual wielder lets me, if I take advantage of the light property and the Nick property, the new weapon mastery, I'm able to make two weapon attacks, kind of like what Charlie gets into, with just a single attack,
Yeah.
which is a huge change. That's been kind of the buzz around a lot of the internet and a lot of the influencers and the people who make this their job is to look at these new rules have been just going ham over, which is super fun. So now Camber in melee, in 5 foot melee, can make up to 3 attacks
Yeah.
on his turn, which is better than just an extra d6 of damage. Um, so that's kind of a big change in how to, especially now at level 17, how Camber's going to handle melee combat, which I
Yeah.
think is a huge boon because now I have that flexibility that I always wanted for this character. Up close or ranged, I can handle anything.
Yeah. Which is really
Okay.
nice. It's ranger and fighter. That's kind of the goal is to be able to be maneuverable and adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely getting more stuff to do that.
The next big thing that kind of changed is at level 6, rangers get this roving feature, which came from Tasha's. It originally bumped your walking speed by 5 feet, gave you a climbing speed and a swim speed.
Hmm.
Now it cruises by 10 feet.
Yeah.
So my total speed is 40, which matches Nico's, believe it or not. For a while, Nico was slightly faster than me, which was very
Hmm.
interesting. So now he and I have the exact same mobility, which is great for if we need to work in tandem against an enemy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, Rangers also get 2 extra expertises at 9th level, whereas originally in Tasha's you only got one.
One.
So I took expertise in survival and athletics, uh, along with the original expertise I got from picking the subclass perception. I now have 3 expertises, which is
That's
super fun.
amazing.
And then okay, at level 12, I still took piercer.
Okay.
Or sorry, I still took sharpshooter,
Right.
which
Right.
gives
Right.
me
Right. 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 Because we
yeah,
just talked
which
about how
takes
you
a
didn't do that.
dexterity bump. You no longer get the -5 to add 10 damage on an attack, but you do get an advance. You do get a change to firing when in melee. If you are within 5 feet of an enemy, you do not get disadvantage on your attack roll,
Okay. Which
which
I
is
mean,
great
that happens in the gauntlet
all the
nigh on
time.
frequently. Yep.
Yeah, all the time. I still don't take disadvantage when using the long range of my weapons. So with a short bow, 360 feet, I can hit anything from anywhere.
Yeah.
And then range attacks ignore half and 3/4 cover. That's still the same.
Yeah.
Love it. Super happy with that.
Yeah. And I've been trying really hard to put more cover into Gauntlet too. So you've
Yes,
definitely been able to get around that a lot, which is nice.
I love trying to figure that out. I have not, trust me, don't. I have not glossed over the fact that Hunter's Mark is now a built-in class feature.
Yes.
We're not missing that at all. So I get, I think, proficiency bonus times per day, a free casting of Hunter's Mark,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot.
Yeah.
That's usually if Camber's casting spells, it's using Hunter's Mark just to get that little extra oomph to finish the room.
Yeah.
and that eats through my spell slots
Yeah.
pretty quickly. So now that I get free uses of it, it just gives me those options to utilize my spell slots in ways that are more beneficial to others. I can cast Cure Wounds more frequently. I can cast Fog Cloud to obscure enemies' visions. I can
Yeah.
do so much more.
You have a lot more
Now,
options.
also at level Angel 13, damage doesn't break your concentration on Hunter's Mark.
Yeah.
So it is going to stick around when it's up a lot longer. Which then brings me to the spells that Rangers have had adjusted, and a lot of their spells got some much needed love and care.
Yeah.
Magic Weapon is something that I took that I did not have before, which
All
is not a
right.
concentration spell anymore. So
They've been doing a lot of that. I love that.
all of my attacks when that spell has been cast will get +1 to attack and +1 to damage. I was able to take more spells because Rangers, instead of having uh, a fixed number of spells known, you sorry, you do still have a fixed number of spells known, but there's more. You get access to more of them, and then
Yeah.
also you can change out your spells whenever you take a long rest as a ranger now, which is
Yeah.
super helpful. Usually in the past it was kind of like bards where you could only swap out spells when you took a level in ranger. Not anymore. You
Yeah.
have,
You're a prepared
especially like,
caster now, which I always
yeah,
thought they should be, and in fact regularly mixed up that they weren't
yeah.
because it made
So
more sense.
especially in the gauntlet when I have to utilize and try and capitalize on spells that are effective in constant combat. You know, I'm not taking Pass Without Trace. I'm not taking Good Berry.
Yeah.
So I have to think about spells that are, usually use concentration or have specific tactical abilities. Now that I can change those out after a long rest, if we run into a room where I really need spike growth or plant growth or something like that, I can do that after we die.
Yep.
Which is great. Before we had to literally die enough times to level up for making that change.
For
So
that
I'm
plan
a
out.
huge fan of that.
Yep.
What else has changed? There were a few free spells that Rangers got in Tasha's through, like, as you progress, that no longer affect. Like I got Speak with Plants, locate creature, speak with animals for free that I could cast once per turn. Those have gone away. You could
Yeah.
still technically use them if you wanted to implement some of the backwards compatible rules, if that was a thing that your ranger really wanted
Yeah.
to utilize in a more like a long form campaign. But those were never cast in the gauntlet. They never came up. They were not relevant. And now those are no longer here, and I have access to better spells
Yeah.
that suit me better.
And we're still allowing backwards compatibility to a degree. Obviously, a lot of our classes are from books that are now technically backwards. Whatever's better is really going to be what we're doing here at the Adventurers Pack. Pretty much full stop is whatever we like better is what we're going to do. So in this moment, I agree with you. I think this is the better choice.
Yeah. The last spell that I want to talk about that Canberra took, now that it's been updated, is Grasping Vine,
Yeah.
which is super great. I haven't. This is the first chance I get to use it in the gauntlet. I am going to do it because now, the it's a 4th level spell. Now, when you cast it as a bonus action, the vine actually does damage to the target as opposed to just moving them around. And every turn that I'm concentrating on the spell, I can whip my enemy, deal a little damage, yoink them around with my bonus action, and then attack them.
They've been doing a lot of updates to spells like that, to Grasping Vine, Witch Bolt. We love to see it.
Yeah,
Amazing.
super fun. So, yeah, that's kind of the big thing. I had to be really judicious about which weapon masters I took because I wanted the most versatility and I didn't want to take any redundancy. But also, like, that allowed me to take weapon masteries for weapons that I don't have in my equipment yet. So, like, theoretically, I'm still working on it, but like, I could take weapon mastery with a greatsword.
Yeah, you have options.
If I ever find a greatsword that I want to wield, it's available to me. Or a lance, which would be super cool to be on the back of Nico at level 17 ranger, capstone 20, just like riding into battle with a freaking dragon lance would be so cool. So maybe we'll get there one day.
Oh, I think you all will. All right. Thank you so much, RJ. I think that's probably what we got for Camber. We'll see you again at the big round table in the second half.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks. All right, everybody. I think that means that we are just going to be waiting then. Our next character up is going to be Charlie. So we're just going to wait for Carrie to join us here in a second. And, Carrie, I don't know if you can hear me, but as soon as you are visible, I will let everybody know. Oh, that chat box is really wanting to be a part of the conversation here. There we go. Oh, you know what, Zag? We will hold on to that because I'm not sure. Do me a favor, hold on to that. I'll write it down. I should have brought a notebook in here with me. But yeah, we'll grab that at the round table. All right, give us one quick second here, Carrie. We're gonna get you on in. There we go. Welcome on in, Carrie. Hello. All
Hello.
right, let me flip on over to Wizard as we talk about what's updating with Charlie. Flipped right past Wizard too, didn't I? There we go. Still not quite that good yet. Okay, there we go. All right. So let's talk about changes to Charlie as we're looking out.
Yeah. So do you want to start from the top of it or just overall?
Yeah, that's generally how we're doing it, is kind of like talking about what's changing from the ground up. So we're starting with the ground.
Okay.
Which I
They
know a big thing that I wanted to talk to about with you and Wyatt, since we do have new backgrounds to choose from, is the choices y'all decided to make with your background and how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, so from the beginning we decided we were Strixhaven students or, runaway students in Wyatt's case. Um and Strixhaven technically isn't in the new like 2024 core book. Um but talked with you and it's really like a big part of both of our identities, or at least definitely mine. So I kept the Strixhaven background,
Yeah.
and it kind of gives the same things that the new backgrounds give. It has the Strixhaven feat built into it,
Yeah.
so I feel like it's still is an even playing field with everybody else.
I
um
I also felt that way when you and Josh were talking to me about what you were thinking with these backgrounds, is that that was kind of the beginning of D&D moving this direction
yeah.
towards having backgrounds instead of having a feature, since the features, I've talked about this on this channel and before, that I love backgrounds as far as additions to D&D in the time that I've been playing. I think backgrounds are swell. I think they're super fun. I like what they do narratively for a character, and adding a more practical feature that actually, like, unlike a lot of the other features which are always kind of like, you kind of had to like talk about it to use it, and it was always kind of awkward being like, hey, can I use my background feature? But
Yeah.
instead it's just giving you a feat. And so yeah, I thought that was a great choice.
Yeah, so basically kept with the same one. I'm in the same, school, which, um, if nobody knows, like, I'm in the school of Prismari, which makes sense for Charlie. It's the art school, basically.
Yeah.
um, and I get two free, two cantrips out of it, and then a free first level spell. I stuck with the same ones I had before, which was Firebolt and Ray of Frost, and then my spell is Shield, which I get to use for free once, and then use spell slots for it after that. Which, as you know, with Charlie, I utilize that a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of Charlie's thing. So yeah, I mean, I kept with the same background that I had. Wizard did change its um from level 1. It's kind of crazy. Like it's stuff that was either like subtly written out or just kind of assumed, or like in Tasha's, so it brought in the Tasha's um arcane recovery changes. It brought in ritual adept, which means, I mean, it already kind of was in there written, but it's now separate, where any spell that I have in my spell book, that is a ritual, I don't have to prepare
Yep.
as long as I use
The
it cast as a ritual.
awesome wizard thing. That's always been whenever
Um,
I've gotten to play a wizard, it's like one of my favorite things is the ritual adept. I'm glad
yeah,
to see
and
it sticking.
I realized I only have 2 ritual spells,
Yeah,
but
because
and
Gauntlet.
yeah, it's Gauntlet. There's really no need, but one of them is Find Familiar, which I do use,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nice to not have to like prepare it.
Prepared. Yep.
Um, and then the other one I have is Water Walk, which I get again through my background with the Strixhaven background. It also it added like 2 spells at each level, or I can't remember exactly what it was. I haven't used it. Maybe eventually. I don't know. Walk on water. Give us that moment. Um,
You can always
that
cast
exists.
it in the sanctuary
Yeah,
if you want to.
and
God
I've
knows.
thought about doing it before. Just have other things that have needed do in the sanctuary. Um, and then the other thing I get at first level, I get an expertise. I haven't
Yeah.
had that before, Charlie. Or I guess it's at second level.
Yeah. Second level.
Yeah, second
Yeah. Yeah.
level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I now am an expert in Arcana,
Makes
uh,
perfect sense. And like,
which makes sense.
yeah, and I think it's a good thing to see considering wizards have always been a very skill heavy class, seeing an expertise handed over to wizards. I'm for it. 10 stars.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting because also like it makes sense because a lot of wizards specialize in one thing or another, and like you would
Mhm.
think that you would have an expertise in the thing that you do really well, and that you
Yeah.
studied really hard. Yeah, so I don't know. I was kind of excited. I don't know how
Yeah.
often I'll use it, but it's still exciting. Like I'll make those Arcana checks when I can.
Yeah, there's times it comes up.
Yeah, I mean, it came up in last time I was playing.
Yep.
So yeah, and then I guess the other thing is um my subclass doesn't exist.
Yeah, not technically in this book. It's Blade Singers went into Tasha's, right? We got Blade Singers more
Yeah,
formally in Tasha's. They were always present in the Sword Coast Adventures guide, but then they updated them for Tasha's, which I was a big fan of and very excited to see that happen. And yep,
yeah,
we've got another class that we'll see if they update it or if they say that it's fine as it is. I have no idea what they're going to be doing with some of those newer subclasses. So,
yeah. So basically, how I mean, we actually haven't talked about this. How I had to do it on D&D Beyond was it has like the core rules and then it has expanded rules.
yeah.
And so blade singing is under the expanded rules. Um, which my assumption was that means it's just expanded on the core, but it's kind of part of the core.
Yeah. That's basically how they're So, a big feature that we are seeing right now, and I've been through updates, edition updates before, but I've never been through one that has this much digital support. And the digital support is evolving slowly. So, I know I talked about this at the beginning, but this is another one of those moments where, for a little bit here, we're kind of back to pen and paper a little bit for some of this. But, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's getting there. It's getting a little bit clearer as they're doing this shift for all of this information, especially since I'd love to say it's done, but I don't think it's going to be done until the monster manual drops early next year. So we're going to see
Yeah.
what happens. But yeah, absolutely, expanded rules just means the backwards compatible rules, and that's fine.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's in there. I guess the other thing that's weird is that my spells for my background, um they automatically went in as legacy spells, like the old written ones.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to be as like close to the newest book, I removed those and put the new version of those spells in my spell list.
Yes, which is the
Um,
right call.
yeah, because I was like I get because the background is a legacy background, so it is attached to legacy spells.
Yep.
Um, so I kind of had to futz with that in order to make sure they were all like
Yeah.
correct for the because a lot of the spells actually change kind of dramatically.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure I'm on the correct like current
Yeah.
version of it versus the old legacy versions.
And even if some of those changes were mild, they're enough. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
know. I've had to do it. On back ends for other characters and for Melos, I've had to do it as well. So yeah, we're experiencing it. It's fun. I wish that they would let me do some of that, but that's a different story, and we're not here
Yeah,
to talk about certain software programs that don't pay us money to talk about them. So
I made it work. It just took longer because it was like it automatically populated those, and then I had to go
yeah,
in and like delete. And then two of like Water Walk, for example, doesn't exist in the new book. So I kept it, and I'm actually not sure what I'm supposed to do with
you
that
can just
situation.
use the old water walk. That's fine.
Yeah,
That's what I
because
would
it doesn't exist.
gonna rule.
But yeah, so that was one of the things that was kind of the weird, like changey. And then I guess otherwise my like ASIs and my feats, I actually had to kind of change them due to other changes that happened. The biggest one being Warcaster now gives you a +1 to ASI,
Yeah,
which it didn't before. Which is awesome. So that meant that my intelligence went up to 19 pretty quick. And so basically through some like futzing, I now have an intelligence of 20, which I had before, and my dex is now 19.
very exciting.
Because it gave me an additional +1 to like throw somewhere. I thought about taking that spell sniper. I looked at it so hard, but it would have meant my dex would
Yeah,
be 18 and my intelligence would be 20 somehow. I was like I couldn't figure out how to make the math work.
yeah,
Um and so instead I just took Warcaster, and then I swapped out the slasher feat. I know we had this conversation before. I
yeah,
ended up never really using it with Charlie, and I was just like I feel like I took it kind of under like stress of trying to just take something, and then I never used it. So I swapped that for resilience and dex.
yeah.
Um I wanted
Which
to
is an
use
awesome
it,
feat. Yeah,
but
I love resilience. Resilience is a great feat.
so yeah, those were the big changes in terms of my feats. And then like and my stats changing. The other ones is I did come across spells that no longer existed.
Yes.
And so I had to change out my spells a little bit for ones that exist.
Now, again, to a degree, if you want to keep using some legacy spells, that's totally fine. Um,
It
although,
wasn't
yeah,
even showing them. So that was the thing is like once I switched to it, the legacy spells
okay.
didn't exist anymore on D&D on
There's
this
also
thing that we're
something to be
using.
said about if you want to use it on pen and paper, you can. But I'm gonna say either way, if you want to make a call and you're like, okay, these spells didn't come along with, we're gonna do, we're gonna update to some different spells. You can do that too. Both are gonna be just fine.
I mean, it was fine. Like the biggest ones that like had massive changes. I mean, actually quite a few of my spells had pretty big changes. But Chill Touch is now actually a touch spell.
Yeah,
It's not a ranged. I still have it. It's just I'm like that makes sense. It
it
always
does.
confused me why it was Chill Touch and it was 120-foot range.
Yeah.
Um and then Counter Spell is completely different.
Yep. The counterspell
Um,
change I personally love, primarily because it gets
I love
around
it.
the problem that I know Charlie ran into a chunk, that I always felt kind of like a jerk being like, "Hey, sorry." uh
Well, and then I understand, but it's like frustrating where it's like, why would I have
hmm.
to roll for whether this thing works? Why can't they just roll whether or not it stops the spell? Like I never quite
So,
got it.
we did get a question really quick in chat, and I'm just going to read it out loud really quick for folks. That counterspell, the new counterspell change. So, how this is going to work is it's a level 3 abjuration still. You attempt to interrupt a creature in the process of casting a spell. The creature makes a constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the spell dissipates with no effect, and the action, bonus action, or reaction used to cast it is wasted. If that spell was cast with a spell slot, the slot isn't expended. So, if you are using a spell slot to cast counterspell, it's a lot easier to use, which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate that change. Um, it feels I don't know, it feels easier or like more streamlined to use. Um,
Yeah.
versus before it was like, what spell slot are you casting this
It
at?
had to be a
Okay,
whole bunch of
now,
math.
yeah. And like, I know I had it with Lilith first season and I messed it up so many times because I'm like, I don't understand what I do here. Like, this doesn't logic for my brain. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that one changed. The other big ones are that changed, which I actually like as a min max. Like if I was a min maxer, I'd be like, oh, bummer. But like as a player and a in general, force cage changed, and I
Yeah.
think it's a good thing.
It probably is. It's
It
probably
was
the right call to
so
change.
broken.
Um and I know you just got the components too.
It's
But
fine. It
yeah.
was so broken. I will still use it. It's just now it's like a little less broken and it makes more sense. Like,
Yeah. So to confirm for the audience, Force Cage now consumes its material components. So it is still very useful, just significantly more expensive to cast. So
well, it also so it does that and then also it's concentration now.
yeah, which makes sense. It's a big JAMA. And they didn't do a lot of nerfs, I feel like, in this update. But the ones they did, it was like, yeah, well, that meh. Fair enough. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
They can I talk a little bit about my character going forward?
A little bit, although we are gonna need to clip along just for time. But yeah, let's do a real
Yeah,
quick
well,
thing
because
looking
so
forward.
the biggest change to Wizard is actually level 18 change.
Mm-hmm.
It was where at level 18 you get to pick any first and second level spell. You always have it prepared and you or any first and second level spell, you have it prepared and it doesn't use spell slots.
Yeah.
Um, and it was any. Now it has to be a spell that uses an action,
Yes.
which I still haven't quite figured out, but I am going to have to change out what spells I actually have in my spell book as part of this change in order to have first level spells that have an action.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to get we'll chat and
But
see what we can
that's
get for Charlie. But yeah,
yeah, that's the
it's
biggest change on my end of things. Um,
yeah, it's the Gauntlet is unique in this way that you look forward in a way that I and not that there's anything wrong with looking forward in a more narrative driven campaign, but in a way that I never did
yeah,
in other campaigns, because looking forward you don't know what's going to happen to your character, but in the Gauntlet, since there's so much resource management, you kind of have to. So
yeah,
I get it. But yeah,
yeah,
thank you
yeah.
so
So
much.
you're
Yeah.
fine.
those are some big exciting ones, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen with Charlie next. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Yeah.
Right. See you at the end. All right, so that was our conversation with our very own Charlie. I think that brings us next to Fionn. So we're just going to wait for Ben to join us here really quickly. And Ben, if you can hear me, as soon as I've got you visual, I will let you know. Give me a world's quickest second. There you are. Welcome on in, Ben. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, Ben and guest. Very important.
Yes. I got Find Familiar in this update. Yeah. And I have another familiar right below me. So
good.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome on in, Ben. Let's talk Fionn.
Yeah, well, everything and nothing changed with Fionn.
Yeah, I know you and I were chatting about this over the last couple of days about how, and again, there's some folks are experiencing big cataclysmic changes, and then yeah.
So Fionn is still vibes. So yes, it did it.
Oh my god.
So the big thing with Fionn, his subclass didn't change. That was from Tasha's. But the barbarian class in general changed a lot. So it's kind of like relearning how to play a barbarian. So I'll kind of go through some of these changes.
Yeah, let me get it pulled up here too.
For folks at home. Maybe I will. There we go. So first off, now barbarians get weapon mastery.
Exciting.
So
we love.
That's really exciting. So I took weapon mastery in all the weapons that Fionn uses. So javelin, longsword, hand axe, and great axe. So I think that's a lot of fun to be able to just play around with. You've been training for a long time with these weapons. Of course, you have a mastery in them. And other barbarian stuff is there is no longer a brutal critical.
Yep.
So that would be when you roll a crit, you would roll extra damage dice, and that would, scale as you leveled.
I was very glad you got to do that.
I know.
Last brutal critical.
My last brutal critical. But what they've replaced it with is brutal strike, which I think is actually a little bit more versatile. So I'll read off the text because it's a little convoluted otherwise. If you use a reckless attack, you can forego any advantage on one strength-based attack roll of your choice on your turn. The chosen attack roll mustn't have disadvantage. If the chosen attack roll hits, the target takes an extra 1d10 damage of the same type, which that scales up, by the weapon or unarmed strike. You can also add one of the effects, which are new, which is forceful blow or hamstring blow.
Okay.
And the forceful blow is the target is pushed 15 feet straight away from you, and then you can move up to half your feet speed straight toward the target without provoking opportunity attacks.
I love that.
And hamstring blow, the target speed is reduced by 15 feet until the start of your next turn. And they can only be affected by one hamstring blow at a time. Even though technically there are two hamstrings, people.
That's just science.
Yeah, that's just science.
That's just science.
The other big thing for Fionn that changed was mobile doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
It is now speedy. Let's see.
It's been updated to be something different.
Yeah, so it's speedy, which is a little annoying. But you still get the speed increase. You still get the dash over difficult terrain, but it's only if you take the dash action. So it's
Yeah.
not your movement, which is blah, 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 blah. And then you have agile movement, so opportunity attacks have disadvantage against you,
Yeah.
and it's not that you don't incur opportunity attacks. So Fionn is
It's
gonna have to make some choices now in battle a little bit differently.
yeah, and as a person like who absolutely adored having the mobile feat, it definitely changes stuff.
Yeah,
but
it's huge.
I do understand why that
Mobile was
change
kind of
happened.
broken.
And at the end of the day, I totally get it.
Yeah.
But disadvantage is still a big deal.
Exactly, and it makes it feel a little bit more realistic, in my opinion. Like, no one's so speedy that you can't hit it all. Like, at
Yeah.
least give them the chance to hit, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that athlete, the background, also
Yes.
doesn't exist in the new core rules.
Okay.
So I did make a decision today to go with the farmer background.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it makes sense for Fionn's backstory, and it still makes sense. Like, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
little weird that he's a cowman working on a farm, but whatever.
And
So
ultimately,
you
and again, like I know you made this decision, but just as a reminder, you have until next week to tell me, or week after next to tell me if you're feeling like maybe you still want to change that again. If
Yeah,
you want to make it, we will.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But the big reasoning for that too was that it gives you the tough feat automatically.
Yeah, which is
Yeah,
pretty
so
nice.
free feat, because you don't get that with the athlete background.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I do want a free feat. Give me a free feat.
No matter what, you're gonna get a free feat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of taking tough at level 12, I took an ASI in Constitution.
Ah, smart.
Yes. So now my max HP went up from 176 to 193.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just felt like, not to be a jokester, but I'm a little beefier now.
But doom. I don't have my jar of D6 right now.
We're safe. We're safe from the D6s.
For now. I should brought it back here just so I could rattle it ominously at you.
I don't think it rattles anymore.
It just makes sloshing jingles. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it didn't change much. Like all of his other things, especially with his subclass, are the same. I think just from what I'm seeing here, my save DC actually went up for my Wild Surge stuff, and I'm not sure why.
We'll take it.
I think it might because of my con.
That would be actually exactly what I think it is. Because, yeah, in fact, I know that is because you used your con for that save DC.
It is.
Yep.
So my DC save is 17 now, which I think is actually really beneficial for him because I think at level 17 it felt like his Wild Surge effects were a little underpowered compared to everything else that he could do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think that's you're gonna like that change, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thrilled. Like it's really fun. Oh my god. Something else that I just noticed changed.
Okay, what is it?
Rage. You can take a bonus action to enter rage. That's normal.
Yep.
You can use it up to 6 times proficiency bonus, but you only regain 1 expended use during a short rest.
Yeah, they've been doing that a bit now. Can you do the thing where you can trade something else out to get a rage back? Because they've been doing that with a lot of classes, where you're not getting his back on a short. Oof.
But you used to only get them back at a long rest.
Yeah.
So now I can get a free one.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
Interesting. Well, that's a vibe. Literally. Yeah. So yeah, it's not a lot of changes except for the barbarian class itself is completely brand new.
Yeah. Let's tell us one thing you're excited for with the new barbarian.
I am very excited. Well, to just like keep hitting harder.
Mm-hmm.
This is less of a barbarian thing, but more of just some of the new rules. I'm really excited for the new weapon mastery effects. So, like sap, cleave. With the javelin, you have slow, which is
Yeah.
really cool. So I'm really really stoked to see how that affects strategy in the gauntlet. Especially like Stonebreaker and I being often friendships with each
Doing
other.
that friendship. Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be a blast to see. Oh hi, um, how that works between the two of us because we can push people around, we can make them slow down, we can let's see, cleave. Um, you can make another melee attack with your weapon, so it's like another free attack essentially, if within 5 feet of you, obviously.
Yeah.
So if I
You
were
have a
to
good
bring
night,
his
Mads.
great
You take
axe
care.
back, I could do that. Yeah.
Exciting. Big exciting. Oh, hello, baby. He dance. Well, thank you so much, Ben. We're going to talk to you again at the end.
Yeah.
I'm
See
excited.
you all soon.
All right, that's going to be that for our Fion updates, which brings us, we're starting to wind down. That's going to bring us to Pan. So whenever Jeffrey is ready to go, we are going to roll back on in and talk about paladins. So that's going to be pretty exciting. All right, I see. All right, Jeffrey, whenever you can hear me, I will let you know when you are visual. Just gonna make some of these hands. Amazing. Hold on one quick second, Jeffrey. Hold on one quick second. We'll get you right on in.
I'll be here.
There you are, Jeffrey. Hello.
Hey. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Jeffrey. Let's talk some
I will see you.
paladins.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a better person to talk it with, as well as for you to talk to about it.
Yeah. Bonus action lay on hands, yo.
That out the gate, and everyone said it, these are some great quality of life improvements. Everything
Yeah.
from like the action economy to just the way this is so much kinder to both new players and old, where it's like there's a lot less words you have to.
Yeah, honestly, there really are. And for me, I know I keep seeing in the chat too. It's just it is the quality of life increases. Honestly, are the
Nailed
big
it.
thing. Yeah.
Look at, and it was said before, the sleep spell. Holy cow!
Yeah.
That whoever they brought in for that, who was like, you know what, you don't have to do. Need 2 calculators to figure out.
Anytime any of y'all cast sleep, I was like, okay.
It's a headache.
Math.
It's a nightmare.
Yep. Yep. So, all right, let's talk about Pan. Let's talk about from the base up what's changed, what's happening, what's going.
Talk about Pan. Well, so like many of my colleagues here, my subclass affected the Oath of Conquest. I think it was still pretty good. What was weird was they took one of the main channel divinities. Well, I should get into paladin stuff first, maybe bit by bit. But
Sure.
channel divinity, you can do twice for long rest and then 3 times at level 11, which is fantastic.
10 stars.
The main, which it's now divine senses channel divinity, as well as they just straight up took what the Conquest Paladin could do, which was make things frightened, gave it to every paladin, which, to be honest, I'm all for.
I'm super here for it, to be perfectly honest with you. And I suppose this is the thing I'm realizing that you and I have not had a chance to talk about. Then, are you keeping your subclass?
Nope.
Yep. I had a feeling.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
Are you gonna keep your subclass? I love this. Okay.
I'm gonna keep it. Yeah, I don't think there's any others that make more sense for Pan. I would have had to
Okay.
have built and added a completely different,
Fair
I
enough.
think, for some of those. And also, I really want to get to that 20th level capstone
Yeah.
power. Like, it's pretty tight. But all the ways they, they did Fess's subclass, all of them look like a lot of fun, and I would have made some choices
Yeah.
different. I'm gonna.
I'm still excited to see what's going to happen with Conquest for you though. But yeah, I do like a lot of the Channel Divinity updates. They feel I know at the very least for me, season 1 of the Gauntlet, Channel Divinity was always one of those things I was like, now? Is it now? Is now the
Because you
moment?
have one shot, right? Like, is that how it?
Yeah,
That's not.
yeah, you never knew if now was the moment to use Channel Divinity. It never felt like it had amazing amounts of utility. So giving the classes that have Channel Divinity a little bit more options, I think, is very
Yeah.
wise.
And it's very unique to each class. Like, if I look
Yeah.
at Conquest, the other thing I could do besides make things afraid was just add +10 to my attack roll before I know if it hits or misses. I think that's something we can talk about that.
Yeah.
That's something that I'd be like, I think I've used it once on the show.
Yeah.
I will use it more now probably, but it's that kind of feels in line with the I wouldn't homebrew anything beyond making that the main.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can chat about that. I know obviously we're going to chat about a chunk of it now, but we also have a couple of weeks. So if we may decide to make any other updates, what I imagine, just because to keep the spirit of the Gauntlet, it's always rules as written, what we might do is a little bit of a Franken rule, essentially. Is probably what my gut instinct is going to be, is to find one other Channel Divinity elsewhere in the book and essentially just cut it out and hand it to you, since
That's very
that it seems like the fairest thing. But we can chat about that. And again, that to me it also makes practical sense, to be perfectly honest with you, because you're right. At a certain point, this is an ability that essentially you're going to miss out on an additional bonus thing. And so yeah, we can absolutely
Here's the
find an
thing, though.
additional one, just chop it in.
Yeah, and that's really generous. Everything else, though, that's new for Paladin, I'm really on board for.
Yeah.
Everything, and they've taken away a bunch, but like bonus action Smite as a spell, fantastic. I'm into it.
Yeah.
And let it be counterspelled for the record if it means I don't have to try to figure out the math of that weird cryptic writing for how it was written before. Fine with it. Let it be that. And they removed the uh immunity to disease from paladins, just straight up.
They
Which,
did.
yeah,
They're
fine.
changing the way they handle disease in D&D, which
Yeah.
is a complex topic that I don't know that any one of us here at the Adventurers Pack are necessarily qualified to dive into too much, since it has complex real world conversations. Let's with putting it gently like that.
Sure.
But yeah, I know that hilariously did save my bacon a couple of times in season 1.
Here's what's from a DM to player perspective.
Mhm.
Said this a few times outside of Gauntlet. Whatever they took away, players got back like twofold in
Yeah.
other abilities that are really fun. If anything, this just means that like the DM now has some more tools they can use that can make. And I think that's a better game.
Yeah, I agree with you, to be honest. Again, for me, this all feels a lot of like quality of life stuff, genuinely and truly. So,
Hugely. But
but yeah, let's talk about Pan.
Oh, okay, so let's get into background, because that was
Yeah.
a really that's a new sort of quote a minotaur of vibe. And I was conflicted here because, and it seems like we can handpick our little feat or our origin feat.
Yes, that is correct.
I have thoughts about that. I looked at the backgrounds, and at first I was like, well, it's obviously criminal. And then I spoke to a certain owl about it, and They were like, no, Pan would probably. I was like, is it criminal or wayfarer? They're like, wayfarer, really how Pan would be, because he isn't like a criminal for crime's sake. He's
He's not a
product.
criminal for crime's sake.
Not for. He's not. You know what that means.
I do. It's just a funny way of wording it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not mad about Wayfarer though, honestly. Like I would have been I could have seen you choosing I could see you choosing either one, and I think both to a degree would make sense.
Yeah. It's not locked in exact, but I feel it's gonna be Wayfarer. And I feel like because it's not a criminal to benefit him,
Yeah.
I think the criminal would be. It's to sort of balance the world from and I've heard it all. I won't get into a rant, but it then became what's the feat? Because for Wayfarer, he gets lucky, and I don't think Pan is lucky. I don't think that's the quality he possesses.
That's fair. And the thing that I will say, and I know I've told the cast this to a degree, if you have a background that you really love, but you're like, this proficiency doesn't make sense for what I was trying to build, or this feat doesn't make sense for what I was trying to build, we are, and again, this is in the spirit of the book, which I'm a big fan of. They actually say this in the book, that you can swap things. There is no need to feel hyper locked into this choice feels right, but these bonuses do not. And so, to a degree, we're going to work on this.
Awesome. I love that flexibility. That's, again, another improvement.
Yeah.
And I looked at, and the origin feat, by the way, great mechanic. I love that they added that.
Yeah.
The thing that I was thinking about with Pan was, out the gate, I could do like tough is something I want to continue to fight my way up through.
Been a popular choice. Yep.
It's a popular choice, and a lot of the Gauntlet current cast like having high HP. I want to keep fighting that fight. But, and then this, and I would like your opinion on this. I thought, what if this is now, we're 17 levels in, it's a new book, and has learned from a number of mistakes and has watched faster creatures in the initiative thrive. What if Pan got the alert feed?
You know, I am not mad about that, to be honest with you. I think it would also make sense for Wayfarer that you need to be on your feet, you need to be paying attention when you are a person who travels and is involved in underground dealings and survives a lot entirely on their own. Alert makes sense. So if you would like to keep everything the Wayfarer would give you, but swap out Lucky for Alert, you absolutely can.
I mean, I appreciate that. I absolutely would not be using Lucky, so I think Alert is going to go. And it's like, I know that this is still, because I've noticed the chat helping out with my initiative.
Yeah.
And this just means I get to roll twice, and I get to take a 3 instead of a 2 when that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just how Z looked at my sheet before I jumped on. Like, you have a -1 to initiative? I have an 11. And I was like, leave some for the rest of us out.
It's been a while since I've had a character with Dex that low. It's a good time, though. That's hilarious.
Yeah. I could have taken the chance to like, change stats around, but I kept it pretty much the same. I hit 20 charisma way quicker.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I took Polearm Master at level 4. I did not take the build to athletics boost because, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, it doesn't seem like you have the same contested athletics, acrobatics to knock a creature prone. It's now a strength or a saving throw.
It is different.
Yeah. So that changes things because now the opposing party has to beat like a 19 with my current stats. It could have been previously with a nat 1, they have to beat a 17, and if I get a nat 20, they have to beat a 36.
Yeah.
Which was
it was getting wild.
Worlds different.
All right. Anything else that was a big change for you that you're feeling?
I mean, weapon mastery we've talked about. I've taken glaive, obviously. That's fantastic.
Obviously.
We lost the ability at level 14, cleansing touch, you might know, end any spell effect on a target.
Yeah.
Versus now it's end armed, blind, deafened, paralyzed, stunned, frightened.
Conditions.
That's way different.
Yeah. And as a bunch of people in the Gauntlet have learned, those differences matter. It's the difference between
spell effect versus condition. Huge.
Yep. It surely does. All right. Yeah.
Otherwise, the last two things I think would be that Armor of Agathis is a bonus action now, which is I'm so glad to not spend a turn doing that.
A better choice. Is a clearly superior
That's
choice.
great. Yeah. And Paladins get Greater Resto now, which I immediately grabbed as one of my currently 14 spells, because as kind of a medkit for this group of people who keep getting cursed and turned into monsters.
Yep.
Greater Resto is huge.
No more worms, no more demons. Yep.
Peace. That's the tagline going forward.
All right. Well, I think then that kind of gets us for Pan, at least for now. I know we've got some more that we're going to need to discuss.
But there wasn't too much. That covered it really. I kept it pretty close to the same because there wasn't... Paladin didn't change too much with this, only for the better in a few ways. Fine Steed is now automatically added.
We love to see that. We love to see it because it was always one of those things that you wanted to do, but like was always kind of an event as a paladin. Yeah. Like it was one of those things you had to like, okay, I'm gonna prepare at this time. It's gonna be an ordeal. But now you don't. It's auto prepared, which is delightful, honestly.
Amazing. The auto prepared and the number of times free per day that you get for certain spells, fantastic. And I do wonder, I think we'll see what Calamity has been up to lately. I'm sure they've been busy.
All right, Jeffrey, thank you so much, and we'll see you.
It was a pleasure.
Big chat.
Hey, you're doing a great job, Em. See you later.
See you later. All right. That brings us next to our very own Stone Breaker. So we're just going to wait for Scott to join this chat. And Scott, as soon as you are visible, I will let you know. Oh, we had you for a second there. All right, give me one quick second. Hello, Stonebreaker.
Well, hello. How's it going? Or sorry, hello.
Hello. So really quickly, we're just going to be fighting the echo on this one. So I'm just going to be sitting up a little bit closer to that microphone really quick as Scott's sitting at a very familiar and really honestly very handsome set.
Honestly, it feels a little haunted.
Well, welcome on in, Stonebreaker. So fighters got some... I always loved playing fighters. My opinion on fighters has always been very well known on this channel. But I always felt as though they did require imagination, which of course all D&D requires imagination, but you had to take the time to break up the monotony of just hitting things. And I would love to see what we're talking about with Stony B.
Well, absolutely, and I can tell you that Stony B has gotten so complicated with this changeover. So I know that we've talked a little bit with some martial classes, getting all of the weapons masteries, but I'm just going to do a really quick count to tell you just exactly how many weapon masteries Stony has. 5, 6. I'm sitting at 6 weapon masteries right now.
Dear Lord.
Yeah, I was really taking some time to figure out, well, I only use the one. So what else can I do? Obviously, I took the greatsword. Decided also to go with hand axes since I'm throwing those around a lot. And then I just thought, what could I possibly come up against that might go my way? So I took the maul, I took javelins, I took a longsword, I took basically anything big, but also anything that I might potentially throw. So yeah, there's just so much going on in there, and honestly, the champion and fighter as a whole have changed not an insignificant amount.
Yep.
Second win is fantastic. Still as a bonus action, regaining hit points, 1d10 plus my fighter level. But as at a higher level now, additionally, whenever I use that, I also get to move up to half of my movement speed. And mobility has always been something tough for Stony, and
Yeah.
that's gonna help a lot. Additionally, actually, moving away from the class, let's just going straight to species. Some changes have happened to the Goliath, and one of those is my speed has increased by 5 feet. So
That's
I
right, because
can,
you're taller now.
yeah, I'm just a little bit bigger, so I move base speed of 35 feet, and
Well, I
once
realize I should say it's not so much that you're taller, so much as the book is recognizing that you're taller.
the book is recognizing that I'm taller, but also the book is giving me an ability to get even bigger.
Yes.
So I believe it's as a bonus action. I can let me make sure I've got this here. Yeah, large form. Um, I may, as a bonus action, grow one size category, so I can become a large creature, and this transformation lasts for 10 minutes.
Yep.
During that duration, I have advantage on strength checks, and my speed increases by 10 feet again.
Yeah.
So
And with that, Goliaths actually have some more in the species update because they are moving the language away from race and into species for anyone who hasn't been tracking that, which is, while I feel, and again, I don't know that I'm the person to be holding this debate, so while I think it is valid alternatively, I don't know that that's the space I should hold in this conversation. The big thing I would say is that regardless, moving away from the word races is the right call. But as far as the species updates go for Goliaths, there were some additional options added.
there were, yeah. So you get to choose what giant ancestry you have, and a lot of changes in there. Like some of them you could teleport, to others you could add fire damage. But the stone giant gives you stone's endurance, which we can't have Stonebreaker without Stone's Endurance.
As
So
soon
I
as
have
I-
officially
yeah.
gone, yeah. So I have gone with the Stone Giant background.
It would have been weird not to.
Absolutely, absolutely. I got to be doing some negating of damage still, and there are other places where that has also improved. Um, so Heavy Armor Master has changed as well. Now it's no longer -3 damage from any non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing. Now it is I reduce damage equal to my proficiency modifier for any bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, which includes magical. So my damage reduction has also gone up. Uh, Here's the thing where it's going to get really tough and tricky with me is I can also change out my weapon mastery. So when I make an attack with a weapon that I have weapon mastery, I may choose to instead use a different mastery. Let me find the exact ones here. I may change it. So the weapon mastery for my main weapon. Let me pull this up. So my main weapon mastery for the greatsword, it gives me graze. If I miss with the attack, it still deals damage. It is let's see here. It's equal to the ability modifier of the attack. My strength, which is sitting at a nice 20, so it's going to be an additional 5 damage, even if I miss with the attack.
It feels very Stonebreaker too. That
Right? There's always going to be damage that is being dealt out. However, if I hit with the attack, I may also then choose to instead push, sap, or slow the target. So it's no longer just I slash at it, I hit, I do what I do best. Now I have to think about what I do best. So
Yeah.
we're seeing a lot of that.
which is again, I think it's one of those things where it's taking what a lot of players were doing, which was creating creative ways to make attacks and giving it concrete rules.
Absolutely, absolutely. So diving into the rest of all this, some nice changes that we see. My Indomitable feature. Now, instead of just getting to re-roll a failed save, now I get to re-roll it and add a bonus to it equal to my fighter level. So if I fail a saving throw, I may re-roll it with a bonus of a 17. So, I will succeed. Additionally, as a heroic warrior, during combat, I may give myself heroic inspiration whenever I start my turn without it. So I'll always have an automatic reroll of a single die on each of my turns, but just one.
It's pretty dope.
Oh, it's so much. Let me see what else is popping on here. Additionally, studied attacks. If ever I make an attack roll against a creature and I miss, I will have advantage on the next attack that I make against that creature. So with the graze property, even if I miss and I deal that, I'm still dealing that 5 damage. My next attack will then have advantage, which is going to help with the potential of hitting that critical attack. Boy, there's now one thing that we did see a decrease in is one of my absolute favorite feats, and that was the Great Weapons Master.
Yeah.
Which, similar to the sniper feat, we got a little bit of a nerf on that, which is completely fine.
Yeah, you were dealing a lot of damage with that.
Way too much damage. So let me find here. So this new one with the Great Weapons Master, when I hit a creature with a weapon that has the heavy property, as part of the attack, I may cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target equal to my proficiency bonus. So now, instead of risk and reward, there's just a constant bonus to damage. Additionally, the Great Weapon fighting style that I have taken, instead of getting to reroll 1s and 2s, now it treats all 1s and 2s on the die as if they were a 3. So my minimum damage is just going up. I'm no longer going to be doing massive amounts of damage, but my average damages are going to be much higher than they have been, with the ability to crit and really hit those heavy blows home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, there's so much that has changed. I feel like I've only touched on a few of them. I have gotten to take a couple different feats this time around, not because I needed to change anything, but purely because now pretty much every feat gives you an ability score increase. So before, when I had to take one ability score increase to negate taking a couple of feats that didn't give me those bonuses, it just ended up that I had an extra feat to play around with. So my strength score is a 20. My con is still sitting at that 22. But also because of this now, my dexterity has actually gone up.
That's
I now have
exciting.
a 12 to my dexterity, so I'm going to be making those dex checks with just a +1.
It's more than what it was before, though.
It is. But the thing that I chose to do, I was having a hard time figuring out what is that extra feat that I was going to take. And I thought about taking Speedy to increase my speed by another 10 and just make me that much more mobile on the field. But it didn't feel right. And I was trying to think of something that felt right for Stonebreaker. I almost took Magic Initiate Cleric to give myself the ability to actually cast a Cure Wounds. Or not a Cure Wounds, but to cast some little minor healing stuff.
There was always an alternate universe, I know, where we talked about that.
Where Stonebreaker took some dips into Cleric and multiclassed. But what that led down is at level 16, I took the feat Mage Slayer.
Ooh, okay.
So that's what bumped my dexterity up by 1. But additionally now, whenever I damage a creature that is concentrating on a spell, they now have disadvantage on their concentration check.
That's amazing.
And
you're gonna get a lot of love out of that.
Importantly for me, if I fail an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma saving throw, I may cause myself to succeed instead. Once I use this benefit, I can't use it again until I finish a short or long rest.
Yeah, I've gotten you with those, though, so I think that's brilliant.
And so now I have backups of, I have now Indomitable that will really help me with that. And if I still fail it for some reason, or I'm out of Indomitables, I can just choose to succeed once.
Amazing.
All of this just boosting Stonebreaker, and in the last 3 levels, we are going to see some huge jumps with Stonebreakers, not just damage negating, but healing and recovering. But this all ties back to the very first thing at level 1, the origin feat. So Stonebreaker has officially embraced it. Really was correct for where he was from, but has fully embraced all of the little shrubs and has taken the farmer background, which has given him. It has given him the tough feat, which brings my maximum hit points to a whopping 231 health.
Yep.
So
yeah, by far and away. I had a feeling there was gonna be some reactions like that. Yeah, I love that you and Fion both took the farmer feat. The farmer background. It tickles. But also makes it's kind of adorable. Again, I can see them both just kind of like hanging out, but also the jokes are great. All right. Well, I think that's probably that for Stony B then. Thank you so much, Scott. I'm excited to talk to you more about some of the changes in the second half.
I'm looking forward to that round table. Yeah, we'll see you there.
See you there. All right. Amazing. Well, that brings us to the very last of our group. This is going to bring us to Wyatt. So we are just waiting for Josh to join us here. Then we are going to talk, last but not least, about our bunny friend. All right. One quick second, Josh. I'll let everyone know. I'll let you know when you're visible. And there you go. Welcome on in, Josh.
Hello, hello. Good to see everybody.
Good to have you on by, Josh. Yeah, so let's talk. I know because of the way that you multi-classed, you experienced some changes, and we should probably chat about that. I know you sent me a message, and I figured, now is as good a time to chat about it, so let's chat.
Yeah. There was really only one change that like fundamentally broke something on Wyatt, and it was something I didn't even realize until after I had updated the character sheet. And I was like, wait a minute, why do I have disadvantage on all of these abilities? Wait.
What happened?
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
The Hexblade Warlock is how I got my medium armor proficiency, and I am currently wearing Mizium breastplate, which is medium armor. It's the reason why I have an 18 armor class, and it also protects me from crits and from making saving throws on strength and con checks for taking damage.
Yeah. Warlocks changed so much.
Yeah. I didn't really think about the Warlock changes much as I was looking at all of these updates, because I got 17 levels in 15 levels in Sorcerer, and two in Warlock. So I was like, I'll worry about the Warlock after I look at all these Sorcerer changes. And Sorcerer, we'll get to that. There's a lot of really cool updates. There's some updates that hurt a little bit, but they're made up for by the new buffs. But yeah, so Warlock, the biggest change for Warlock is that you no longer get your subclass at level 1.
Yeah.
Hexblade is not included in these subclasses, but if that change hadn't happened, it wouldn't be affected. I would still be rolling with a Hexblade. But now Warlocks picked their subclass at level 3, and I only have 2 levels in Warlock, so I actually lost my subclass altogether for Warlock, and I lost my medium armor proficiency. One cool thing though, thank goodness, is shield proficiency got moved to light armor, and so I did not lose that proficiency. Otherwise, I'd be going from pretty comfortable to like super duper squishy. And I'd be making some other considerations right now. We can talk about how you would prefer to handle the item. I have a backup choice in my back pocket, but I prefer not to have to take it. And I'm also down to like maybe take a reduction in AC if that's how it comes.
The item, I mean, ultimately, like, we're gonna have to take a look at how, because of all the classes, I think that the old Warlocks port the worst currently. And that is because Warlock changes were so significant. you no longer have a pact and a patron. You just have a patron subclass, and the pact is woven into the oh my goodness, invocations.
Yeah. Which is very cool, actually. I
yeah.
considered taking one of the new packs. I didn't ultimately, but you get an extra invocation slot.
Yeah, and at first I was fussy faced because I always liked that mobility as far as how the class worked. I always thought it made it very unique. But then the more I started reading it, the more I was like, okay, all right, I see the game there. I see what they were doing, and what they were doing was essentially making it actually even more mix and matchy was what they actually did with it, which I'm always for more options. More options, more fun, bigger game, more characters, good time. So
I will say that I actually considered dropping the level of Warlock with these changes because the second level feature that you get is really not that impactful in the Gauntlet. It might be in the Labyrinth, but it's a really cool feature where you can spend a minute to do this ritual and you get back half of your packed spell slots. But that's awesome. It means you can get back some spell slots outside of a short rest, but Warlocks already get back all of their packed spell slots instead of just half on a short rest. And really the only time I'm ever going to find a minute to do a ritual is in the Sanctuary where we're already taking those short rests. So,
and there's something to be said for that, although there might be times in the Sanctuary where you want to be doing something other than a short rest.
Well, and ultimately the reason why I chose to stick with it is I'm now considering taking a third level in Warlock, which I hadn't been before. I had ruled that out entirely, but I got my eye on one of these new subclasses, and it's pretty great for Wyatt, both from like a character background perspective and also like a archetype perspective.
Well,
so
that one I know we'll talk about off camera because that's spoilers.
Yeah, I'll save that for when the choice gets made, but
yeah, we'll chat about that. But yeah, and if ultimately again, if you end up deciding that you do want to do Hexblade again, like I know that we've always ruled that the Gauntlet as rules is written as much as possible, largely because otherwise it starts to become too much, and the Gauntlet has a tendency to spiral out of control as it well is. But to a degree, we'll figure it out.
No, I'm ready to embrace these changes. It's a side effect I wasn't anticipating, but like there's enough other cool stuff that like I said about the sorcerer, like I lost some of my favorite combos, but all the other cool stuff I get, well, like more than makes up for it.
Yeah. It's gonna be great. Okay, well in that case, yeah, mostly then that's kind of sums up our Warlock. Let's talk about some of the sorcerer stuff then.
Yeah, so Sorcerer's got a huge update. I didn't really even realize how much changed until I started rebuilding Wyatt, because there's some like super minor ones I didn't think about. I mentioned I lost one of my favorite combos, so I might as well start there. There were some updates to the way meta magic worked, some really awesome ones, and 2 nerfs that affect me. The awesome part of it is that you get them earlier as you're doing your level up progression. That's irrelevant now, but I actually get a 4th meta magic slot at this level, which previously I only had 3, so I had to make a hard choice between 2 meta magics, and now I have them both, which is really cool. You also can it's still the same mechanic to create a spell slot by burning sorcery point. No, sorry, to create sorcery points by burning a spell slot is still a bonus action, but to create the spell slot is a free action now, which is really cool. So you can actually do both sides of the conversion on the same turn if you wanted to.
Which is fun, honestly.
Very fun. Yeah, that's been a hold up because it's like a 2-turn thing to set up when I'm trying to do some conversion. So that's really cool. So the change though is to the twinned metamagic property and the quicken metamagic property, which are my 2 go-tos. I ultimately think that these are healthy changes for the game overall. It's a bummer because haste, the twinned haste that I love to start with, and the twinned invisibility, both are not doable anymore. The main change here is that previously you could twin any spell that affected just one target, Now you can only twin a spell if when you upcast it, you can add a target
If
to
it
it. So something
allows.
like a bless. I don't have to upcast bless anymore. I could twin bless, and I could cast it on a bigger group of people.
Yeah.
So it's still ways to use it. I didn't take it out of my kit ultimately, but definitely a bummer to not be able to haste both Charlie and Stonebreaker.
Yeah.
That said, that's pretty broken, and I felt locked into a specific play style where my concentration had to be reserved for haste or for invisibility, and that was my opening move like almost every game, at least if I had the spell slots and sorcery points. And it was awesome. It's really fun to watch both of them turn into blender mode when I do that. But it also, it was very powerful. It doesn't need to be that powerful. And now I have other concentration spells that got added to my kit that like I previously never would have cast because double haste is just so much more powerful.
I think that I completely agree, and it's a thing I'm hearing a lot of the players, I mean myself and other games included, saying is that like there were things I felt like I had to do because otherwise I would be missing out on the very clearly only and best choice.
Yeah.
And that's not fun.
It can be fun, but
But like,
I think there's more fun in having the flexibility and the choice and not feeling punished for not making that
exactly.
I said something in the Twitch chat about the mobile feat. I felt like that was also like if you're a melee fighter, like mobile is a must
you have
pick.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the biggest nerfs in this edition, I think, are factors like that. And I think overall it's really good for the health of the game. It's really great for player choice and character choice. So I'm all for it.
I agree. I completely agree.
And then I mentioned the Quicken Meta Magic change. That's in a less impactful way for me personally, but previously you could cast a spell and then Quicken Cantrip on the same turn. Now if you cast a leveled spell, you can't use Quicken. You can't do it in any order. But usually the thing I Quicken is an Eldritch Blast after casting Eldritch Blast. And that is still on the table. I can't do like a heal into an Eldritch Blast on the same turn, but ultimately that's fine. I can deal with that. And there's other ways to use meta magic now too, or to use your sorcery points now too, which totally make up for it. And like I said, I added one. I added the heightened meta magic, which was also updated now. Heightened gives disadvantage if you heighten a DC check spell. It gives the monster disadvantage to save.
That's
which
awesome.
Is awesome for those save and suck spells.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. And I know very similarly to Charlie, you kept your background.
I did. Yeah, you covered the Strixhaven stuff with Charlie, so I won't get too into it. But yeah, I can't give up that. That's such a core part of the character, and it truly does function just like the new Origin backgrounds, where it came with a feat. So that those Origin feats they were kind of introduced with Strixhaven. So
they
it
really
felt
were
appropriate still.
Yeah, honestly, and I had a feeling. I know I'd gotten multiple people asking me about it over the years, and when that happened, I had a feeling this was the direction they were going to go. And honestly, I'm for it. So
I dig it. Yeah, it also makes my background feel less broken because previously it did feel like this background's clearly better than anything I could have taken from the player's handbook previously. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, I think that might sum it up then for Wyatt, unless there's anything else you want to add there at the end.
I mean, I gotta shout out the new what's it called? Innate casting. I think it's basically like Sorcerer Rage for 1 minute. I go into this like new mode, like I go Super Saiyan kind of, which is really cool. You get advantage on attack rolls during this time. Very very cool there.
Yeah.
And then additionally, I made one change that like wasn't actually part of this. I did keep Divine Soul Sorcerer. That was from I believe Tasha's, and Tasha's is really where I think they started moving this direction with the subclasses.
Yeah.
But as part of Divine Soul, you choose. It's not exactly alignment, but you choose these like 4 pillars: good, evil, law, or chaos. Previously, I was good. I changed it to chaos, which I felt was appropriate for Wyatt's character arc of the season. It didn't feel like a retcon to me. It felt like I've made this change as a character.
Chaos has always been the name of his game, so I
Yeah.
think that's a fun call.
Totally. But yeah, I am very happy with where Wyatt ended up. We'll have to talk about the armor. We'll figure that
We'll
out.
have to figure it out.
I mentioned one other thing in chat I wanted to hit. Currently, I took spell sniper because I ended up with an extra feat as well because of all of this. That was actually because all feats are half feats now. You get a +1 to an ASI with every feat, and so I was able to take another feat and still hit my charisma 20 cap. So I took spell sniper. I did consider moderately armored to keep my
the Mizium
Mizium breastplate, but there's so many disadvantages to doing that over spell sniper that ultimately I don't think I'm gonna do that, even if we don't work something out with the armor class. So
I think that's the right call. And for what's worth,
yeah.
it was only the Hexblade that gave you the medium armor mastery, right?
That was it. Yep.
Okay. Well, that one may have to be a little bit of an off-camera fix because I think we can also, again, like if it ends up being a thing, just because that's gonna have to probably be a little bit of slicing and dicing. But what we can ultimately do is, I'd say right now, there's nothing I can do about it. But if you do take a 3rd level
So
in
good.
Warlock, there's probably some more we can do about it. So
cool. Well, we'll talk about that when we get there.
Amazing. All right, Josh, thank you so much for being here with us, and we are going to see you here in a few minutes.
Thank you, Emmy.
All right, on that note, we are about to head into the round table where we're going to chat with all of the performers and see how everybody is feeling about some of these new changes. It's probably not going to be too terribly long there, but we are going to still hang out, just get a chance to see everybody on screen. We are going to take a quick 10. Just a quick 10, stretch our legs, chat about what's coming next, and then we are going to be right back. See you in a few minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Whoa.
Oh, Fiona knows how to get the party started.
Vibes.
Voips.
That was perfect timing. Good
It
job.
really
Ben.
was, Ben. Welcome back to the Gauntlet, Audience Interactive, Dungeons and Dragons, Combat Chaos. We are so excited to have everybody here tonight as we are talking about the update, the big update, the 2024 update, and the first book released for it right here in the Player's Handbook. This is the first of 3 books that are going to be released, formally updating D&D into... Boy, I wish we had a better word for it. The 2024 edition of D&D. But there you go. It is what it is. It's complex.
The
and
definitely not 5.5 edition.
the definitely
Yeah.
not 5.5. That would be weird if we called it that. It's 5.5. But yeah, generally speaking, we are pretty excited about a lot of these changes. We are really intrigued to see what's going to be happening next. So yeah, we're just going to take a quick few minutes here to talk as a group, sort of chat around and see how we're all feeling. The first thing I wanted to just sort of pose to the group, and I know, of course, we're not live here in the room due to mostly microphone constraints, but the big thing I wanted to chat with the big group for everybody here is, what's a thing that you are excited about? Like, doesn't have to be for your character, it doesn't have to be for anything particularly that you're doing in the Gauntlet right now. What's a thing you are excited about that you found in this book? And whoever's got that answer first, feel
I
free.
can answer that actually pretty quickly.
Okay, what is it, Jeffrey?
I know okay, your tone kind of betrays how you feel about where this go. But what it is that I like the crafting tables with all the tools, which they didn't really have prior. They now have the DC like 15 with the tools, and you craft like a jug if you've got the pottery tools or whatever. I also like that's interesting to me because that gives a purpose to those. You can make healing potions now,
Yeah.
and I also like the new lifestyle things, the style of living from like Squalid, where you just sleep outside and just make ends meet. Like, it's like aristocratic or something. It's the Aristocats. That's the biggest one. The Aristocats. The
Aristocats,
Tabaxi
yes.
didn't get included except for this. I like how simple that is, and the disclaimer that's like the DM can make some like problems for you if they want, depending on what you choose. Because when I gave this option to my players for level 3, doing Golden Vault and Radiant Citadel related module adventures, they have like 500 gold. All 5 of them picked squalid, wretched living, just sleeping outside. And I was like, all right, so you're just living outside, camping on the street, heroes. Great.
I do love that they made these more practical. They had some of these charts in Xanathar's and
Mhm.
the lifestyles in some of the other books, but they were just kind of there. It was like, this is cool. This is so cool. I love it. I genuinely do.
Here it is.
So being able to give items like that more technical definition can be really nice in a game that can feel very technical on certain things like that, and then will occasionally just abandon you to your own decision on how that's going to work. So I like it. I think it's a good shift, and especially I like being able to provide more concrete rules for out of combat things like that. Can be really
Mhm.
satisfying.
Yeah. That's. It just seems like they've taken this update to make everything a little bit more realistic, like just enough. Because like, yes, it's a fantasy game. We get that, but there's something now where it feels a little bit more immersive because things are a little bit more like realistic to the like our world where what we're doing. Like you do have to learn how to craft things. Like there is a place like to fail. If you are an adventurer, of course you should start with a feat. Like you're not just some common like peasant or whatever. So it's cool to kind of give this like vibe of realness to the game that's been around for what 50 plus years now.
Just hit 50. Yep, it says so on the back. It's got a
yeah. It
Yeah,
sure does.
I think origin feats are one of my number one most excitable includes. It was something that I tested with a game I was running for some friends 2 years ago, and for my players, there's only 3 of them, but it really helped amplify their interest in playing a TTRPG uh, beyond like being able to use magic. Because I had a fighter, I had a ranger, and I had a barbarian. So only one partial caster, excuse me, among those 3. So giving each of them a feat at level 1 helped kind of boost their interest in and helped demonstrate their ability to stand out from the crowd in a way that felt heroic and felt like the start of a hero's journey.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's now codified in this new handbook that everybody starts with an origin feat is great. I would like to see those expanded upon in the future. I do think that the fact, and Emmy kind of touched on this when we were all talking, is that your background has a singular origin feat is a little restraining to me. I would have preferred to see a couple different options among the feats in total in those backgrounds, because you could be a farmer, you could be a soldier, you could be a magic initiate, and utilize feats in different ways in those roles.
Yeah.
I also understand how that could lead to a lot of decision paralysis at the very onset of the game, so I recognize why they kept it to 1.
Yeah.
I do think that that is something that could be expanded upon, and I would look for in the future if there are additional books that come out that offer and provide additional origin feats for the backgrounds that are first printed. I'd love that.
It would not shock me. I know they have already confirmed that there are going to be books with additional classes and spells and feats, much like they have done for 5.0. And so it would absolutely not shock me for us to see more. Adding more feats is such an easy way to add diversity to the game. And so I completely agree. And that's part of why, and to echo what RJ said, that we talked about this a lot during the individual chats and stuff like that. I really did feel it was within the spirit of the game to talk about, like, okay, but if you don't love this feat, let's talk about it. Let's fix it. If you don't love the proficiency it gives you, let's chat. Like, it's totally fine. As long as it is an honest choice, I think it's the right choice. But I completely agree. I love the background so much. Scott, actually, I have a question for you really quickly because I think you're probably going to know it off the quickest of your head. In 3.5, did everybody start with a feat?
I'm trying to remember. I don't recall if everyone started with a feat. But one thing that I did want to bring up actually was the comparison to the older edition, where I really like that everyone starts with an origin feat, and I also like that all of the feats have been given the innate bonus that makes it more accessible and more of a viable option for players to choose a feat, as opposed to feel as though, well, the only way that I get to up my scores is by taking just the bonus.
Yeah. Where now most of them have the ASI built in a little.
Yeah. The way that 3.5 did it way back, I did kind of like in that every 3rd level you would get a feat, and every 4th level you would get an ability score increase, and so you would end up getting more feats. Now they had so many more feats in those books back in the day, but I do think that the greater choices of feats then does let you make your character feel much more unique to you, because with a variety of different feats you could have 2 players playing, a thief rogue, but just in how they choose their how they have their feat choices, and now with their backgrounds as well, they could still feel very different, even though they are the exact same class and subclass. Whereas I think in base 5, if you had people of the same class, the only way to really feel as though you were different was to then be a different subclass. So having more options, having more choices for people, um, it can be incredibly overwhelming, I think, for new players. But I do think that we're starting to find a nice balance between being accessible, but also being um, deep and complex in the long run.
I'll piggyback off that because that's essentially what I'm most excited about as well, is like the accessibility and diversity of character choice that this opens up. I talked about this in my one-on-one session, but beyond just not feeling like you're having to pick the most optimal choice, whether that's a spell pick, a feature, a combo, or in this case an ASI over a feat. I'm excited to see all the new interactions that we're going to discover when we put these new characters together. Because a lot of the synergies that we find in the Gauntlet, like, we didn't really plan on that. Like turning Stonebreaker into blender mode, like that was part of the plan, but like the discovery of like just how broken we can make that was a joy. And so we lose some of our combos here, but we also are going to have like a whole new kit to discover new interactions, new combos. And that's just with these pre-existing level 17 characters. I'm also really excited to roll up a fresh character using these systems, because a lot of the things that, like, I'm a power gamer in a lot of ways, and I have to fight that instinct a lot of the time, and this actually makes it feel like I'm not going to have to tune that down as much, because they took out a lot of the most busted power gamery combos in favor of balance, diversity, and accessibility. So I'm stoked for that.
Completely agree. And it made you feel like and I know I said it already tonight, but it made you feel like you had more options to make more choices, as opposed to feeling like, well, if I don't do this, then I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And that's never fun, especially, I don't know. We've never made a secret of it here at the Adventurers Pack, even when playing extreme blender mode combat goofiness like the Gauntlet, that a lot of us are very heavily inspired by the idea of telling stories and making things narrative. I mean, hell, it fights tooth and nail to make its way into the Gauntlet no matter what. It's the nature of the game. This is a narrative game, and we are narrative people. And so even then, being filled like on a game that's a little bit more choppy, we're still like, oh, but I guess I have to do this. And that's never fun. So options good.
I want to actually piggyback off that options thing, because it's something that, like, I thought was really interesting that they changed, and it is a combat thing, not a playing thing or whatever, but is all of the weapons now have like the weapon masteries, and they actually have individual things for the weapons. And like, I remember starting Gauntlet season 2 and being like, oh, well, I could just take a rapier again because that would be the like optimal thing to do. And I'm like, but I don't want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a different weapon, but in all honesty, taking the other weapon didn't really change anything or do anything. It's just a different, like, slightly flavor, but there's no flavor to it. And now it feels like they realized there wasn't flavor to those weapon choices, and they added in flavor into it, so that when you are in the combat and you are doing that, you can do unique things with those weapons, and you actually like feel like there is a reason to pick like the great sword over the great axe or whatever. Like, when they had the exact same dice that you're rolling, you now have other options with them, which I find like much more interesting than how it used to be, with everything just being like you just roll dice and how it hits is how it hits.
I completely 100% agree. That I used to joke about, like, all right, well, which version of a D8 is this?
Yeah.
Like, it's all the
Exactly.
same.
Yeah, Carrie, I'm gonna have to pick your brain on how you go about theorizing or strategizing your dual wielding capabilities as Charlie, because now that Camber has access to almost as many weapon masteries as Stonebreaker, and the option to dual wield in melee, I need your advice on how you make those decisions. Because
I have 2 light
on the
weapons.
table now. Yeah, it's on the table
Liter-
now.
That's literally what I did. I was like, the only
Yeah.
way I can do two-handed fighting was with 2 light weapons. So I have a crystal scimitar, and then I have my shadow blade. That's a light weapon.
Dex as a weapon mastery is really good. If you can get advantage on your next attack with your first attack, like
That's insane.
that's insane. Oh, do you have that? Look
Yeah,
at that.
that's absolutely crazy.
The
for
rogue
people
has
to have-
advantage on an
With
attack.
both of the weapons.
Jeez. Jeez.
Yep, just
Yeah, it's
creating
absolutely
advantage.
crazy if you have extra attack, because then you hit with one, you get advantage on your second attack, and like there's a lot of ways to get advantage on the first attack. So then you're just like can potentially always hit with advantage.
Yeah.
Which is I think where Stoney's about to be landing.
Well, the thing that I'm found that I'm going to be able to do is, if I really want to, I could shove someone about 50 feet back and keep pace with them the whole time. And then
Right.
for a
Love-
final blow, cut their speed down by 10 feet, but also, since it's a slashing weapon, reduce it by another 10 feet. So I push them 50 feet back and reduce their speed by 20 feet. It's
I
gonna
love
get
that so
weird.
much.
It's gonna get so weird.
Y'all are gonna start making me have to zoom out so ding dang hard, especially because now Wyatt can put the invocations on any spell. It doesn't have to be Eldritch Blast as long as it's a cantrip. So
Well, no. Technically, I would have to take that invocation again to put it on another spell. But I took Spell Sniper, so
Yep.
I can shoot real far.
Everyone
Yeah.
did. Everyone took Spell
Everyone took
Sniper.
Spell
I already
Sniper.
had
I didn't take it. I may change still. I'm still trying to figure out the math of my feats.
A
but
lot of
as
your
right
stuff
now,
is
I haven't
right up
taken it.
close and personal, so I understand. I totally
I mean, I
understand.
took it, so.
Yeah, you needed it.
Dang
You
it!
straight up. I'm like, what does this remind me of? I'm like, oh, it's not like the Avengers. It's not Marvel. It's straight up Dragon Ball Z anime. You are punching someone and they're flying 30 feet, and then you're catching them and continuing to beat on them. That is a problem.
I do love,
Yeah.
and and then I know we'll probably move on to the next thing a little bit, but a big complaint that they have had over the last many years of this edition is the lack of written support for high level play. There's plenty of homebrew and things like that that'll get you to high level play, and plenty of modules that are officially published and stuff, but they have very few written modules and support that will take you to 20, and less monsters for you to fight. And they've been working on that lately. They released a new module that'll take you right all the way to 20. The Vecna one, which I really actually want to get just because it's got so many stinking ridiculous high level monsters in it. It just makes me so thrilled. The monsters of the multiverse had way more high powered stuff. So I'm very intrigued to see how y'all high level play has always been one of the fun things about D&D, so I'm really intrigued to see how this is going to go. On that, I think we should probably move on to the next question I had, which is, if it's not something that you dislike, what's something in this book that there's a change where you're like, oh, okay, I guess that's the change. One singular manly tear. And it doesn't have to be a thing you hate. It can just be like a thing that you're like, oh, or it can be a thing you hate. RJ, I know it looks like you had.
they made balloons.
Oh God.
I am in the camp that Hunter's Mark should not be concentration.
Okay.
At least at higher levels. I think at level 10, it should not require concentration. I think the capstone feature of increasing it from a D6 to a D10 is underwhelming. And especially just from a nuts and bolts like gaming perspective, you see spells that can scale with commitment to higher spell slots. When even for a entry level gamer, increasing a singular dice from a d6 to a d10 is not as appealing to take that character all the way to level 20 as other classes like warlock, like paladin, like wizard. So I do share those concerns that a lot of people have voiced about that. I am not enough of a game designer to understand what is a better solution. I wish I could offer that to our audience. But I think I think the biggest thing that I've noticed about the discussion is that from a ultimate from like a very simple perspective, Wizards views Hunter's Mark as a finishing move, as opposed to a um, a knockout move. Like, I think the way that Wizards views Hunter's Mark as like, I'm going to set up for the first 2 rounds, and then once I'm ready to put this fight done, I cast Hunter's Mark, and that's going to take the fight down. Whereas a lot of gamers say like, this is the first thing I'm going to do, and it should be the only thing I do, which I think therein lies the tension among a lot of the designers in the crowd. But like, that's just from a personal perspective of like the Ranger feature, of like the Ranger class whatsoever. I think outside of the Gauntlet, the Ranger is still an incredible amount of roleplay potential, an incredible amount of exploration expertise. If your party does not have a rogue or a druid, if you have a ranger, you can pretty much scout out any terrain or any environment that you need and still provide that type of like natural, explorer. And I think that's amazing. I think the fact that they are now half casters that can change out their spells every long rest as opposed to leveling up adds to that versatility that a lot of the party could use. Like if you have a party full of half casters who could only change out spells every at level ups, you as a whole table were pigeonholed into certain types of adventures. Now they've adjusted that so that you could have more flexibility, and I'm super happy with that. But like, if there's, to answer your question originally, like I can't end this call without talking about the elephant in the room of like, it still takes concentration to cast my first level core feature spell that eliminates the possibility of me doing the crazy things that Charlie can do or Wyatt can do, So why? But here we go. We're gonna adapt, and maybe there's something that will be introduced like in a certain subclass feature or another Tasha's 2.0 that can change that.
The other thing also that we want to be very, very clear about is, again, like, this is as we're moving into some critiques and things like that. We're all having a good time and having fun, and there's a certain amount of disagreement that, heck, even within us, we are going to have, even within the people on this call that we are going to have, and that's okay. It is fine. And if you hear us say anything that you're like, rabble, 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 it's okay.
Put it in the comments.
Put it in the comments. It's fine. As long as you don't call us jerk faces, because then I'm going to tell you a jerk face.
Yeah.
But like,
then I'll block you.
But like, it's okay to disagree about some of this stuff. It's very nebulous. And when you get into this much math, it's hard. Like, there's a reason why game designers do a lot of this math and stuff, and it's hard. And sometimes they're going to do stuff that's right, and sometimes they're going to do something that's wrong. And goodness knows the people who make this game don't pay me money to just tell them that they're great all the time. So, and even if they did, I wouldn't, because that's not fair.
Yeah.
So there we go. Yeah, we're not going to get stuck in the addition fight. We are not going to do it. Not who we are.
Well, we can't because we don't have a name for this edition.
That's right. We can't even have a good fight about it.
I've heard 5.24 as a suggestion.
Oh, that makes sense. That's cute, at least. Even if
If only
it's
we could
kind
come
of
up with, a singular title. Just, one title.
Yeah.
A single one.
No, that'd be very confusing.
That would be very bizarre.
Edition 5. So.
In any case,
I think Wizards realized that
D&D 1+5.
Whoa,
D&D
no.
6. Wait.
People are scared of 6, so that was off the table immediately.
Wait, what?
So,
Well, they're scared of an edition change,
Yeah.
specifically.
Same
Yeah.
thing. But to
Uh,
kind of the last thing that I'd say to wrap that up is, yeah, it has been complex. They've been moving around concentration a lot, and there's some ups and downs with that. Scott, looks like you got one.
Yeah, I do have. Oh, Z? No, okay.
Oh, go ahead.
I have one thing. It's very minor, and most of the concerns that I had, from rumors and just bits that had been released before the book was fully out. A lot of my concerns went away after actually getting a hold of the book and being able to read in detail. But there was one that popped out that I do see some. It's a one thing that does make me feel a little worried about the way that Wizards might be thinking about their current work and their work in the future, and it's actually the um, the crafter feat that I believe you get as being an artisan, where as part of the feature of that is the rules state you just get a blanket 20% discount on all mundane items, which to me, giving a blanket rule like that removes a massive amount of agency from the world. You walking into a store and basically saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to get 20% off of this." Well, maybe that store isn't able to be doing discounts right now, or, but at the very least, it removes the role play time for you to actually talk with the shopkeep and maybe make a good persuasion check to earn that discount. Um, and I feel as though it was just a lazy thing that was shoved in, but I'm more worried that it was more of a video gamification of it, where we had Baldur's Gate come out and it was incredibly popular, and now with D&D creating their own incredible virtual tabletop, but I worry that the writers are starting to look at some of the rules as they work in a video game, so they should work here. Whereas for me, the thing that drew me to D&D in the first place over video, and I love video games, they're fantastic, but the limit in a video game is what the developer has coded. The limit in D&D is nothing. And I would much rather see there be. So I will go ahead and say I have already made a house rule for that background feat of, rather than giving a blanket 20% discount on purchases, you have advantage on all social skills with other artisans. So you, as someone who is an artisan, um, you know the language, you understand this world, and so if you're talking to other artisans, it's easier to have those conversations, and that can then lead to you getting a 20% discount, possibly even more, maybe. But it also, I think, is going to help in other ways of like, oh well, now you can just have good, even if you're not a good social character, because of this connection you have as an artisan, you can now have better social roles in that world. Anyway, all of that to say, I do worry that I don't want to see the tabletop, the paper and pencil game make its way into, well, why wouldn't we just be playing a video game instead?
Do you think Wizards was trying to throw some GMs a bone with that specific piece of text to work alongside those players who constantly want to haggle?
It could be. It could be like hey, like if you want players who are haggling, well, here's an out for you to say, well, if you have this, if you want to do that instead of doing these, now you can just get this feat. Um, but if that is the case, I will say it's one of the first times that I think I would have noticed something in this book that they are what's a good way of saying this? Um, they're taking away from, well, no, there are places where I worried that they were taking away from the ability for a DM to have great roleplay with players, but I realized then later on that these were actually protections to players who just might not have great DMs, and they get to now say, "Hey, look, it's in the rules, so I get this."
There you go.
So
Yeah.
this could be one of those places where they say, "Hey, like it's in the rules, I get this," but I think this one gets up to that line of like, sure, but there's got to be a reason for this blanket statement other than just, but I've done the work.
It's interesting that they didn't make it you have advantage on all like price haggles, like that sort of thing, where because everything else in the book is very much it seems like they've moved from you automatically get this to you either have advantage or you get to make it with a +5, like that sort of thing, where yes, it's a little bit more math and a lot more rolling, um, but it takes out that blanket like auto succeed or auto fail type thing. And it is interesting that they left that one as a just a blanket 20%.
Yeah, also I feel like 20 range number and makes you do math weirdly. Like, I don't know, which I know the game is math, but like that's just like such a weird extra math to add to it when advantage seems like something that makes more generally.
For me, and this I think actually at the very least springs on something that Scott brought up that I have noticed a lot in this edition. We even danced around it a little bit. Is that there was a lot of attempts to remove toxicity from the culture of D&D in the last several books. Now, again, whether or not they succeeded in that is a deeply complex matter because there has been a lot of toxicity in the publication and in the community over the past 50 years. That's, again, a deeply complex subject. People have literally written essays on this. I highly recommend going to some more source material than talking to me about it necessarily. But based on knowing that, I do think that this was probably I agree with Scott. Video games and RPGs have always been influencing each other because they come from the same core. Like, a lot of these video games are based on books like this. So there's always that to consider. And that cross-pollination is always going to happen backwards. But I also wonder if this was an attempt to remove a sticking point that kind of came across a little bit cold. That just feels a little bit blanket. And I do think there are a few of these in here. Like I noticed, and mostly I noticed it from watching the videos where they were talking about certain things. Like I remember they were talking about, I was watching the Druid one. And the Druid one, they were talking about how there was wording removed that implied that your hit points went to 0 when you left. In the 2014 rules, you got the hit points of the animal that you wild shaped into on the top of yours, and when you went to 0, you reverted back to your humanoid form. Now, apparently, there were some people using that to trigger death effects when you hit 0 at your wild shape, and it was like, that's such a jerk move. And I wonder if, very similar there, RJ, like if that was them trying to be like just making it a blanket something to kind of remove a rule like that. But again, whoever those people were, y'all, it's a game. Please have fun. For the love of God, please enjoy yourself with this. That's the point.
Those death effect druids are the druids of Coffee Lock or Coffee Lock Sorlocks, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and it was also
It's
apparently
like,
DMs.
maybe it works with the rules as written, but it's not rules as intended.
It's not rules as
sure.
intended, and apparently there were also some DMs triggering, like, for example, for those of you who have had massive transformational effects upon yourself in the Gauntlet, those would have all triggered supposedly under that rule when if you had been a druid who had been wild shaped, those effects would have happened when your animal form hit 0.
Nah.
Yeah. And it's like,
You have to turn into worms a different way, bro.
Yeah, that's not how we
I
do
think is
worms.
dying in that scenario because
Yeah.
one is like a costume you're wearing, and the other is
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, are druids furries?
Halloween is a horror show for them.
Yeah.
truly. Oh, you took
Oh,
off your
boy.
face, you must be dead.
In any case, but yeah, that's
My concern is related to this conversation, the video gamification, and there I've already highlighted the things that, like, you know, it's kind of a bummer they're gone, but for the most part, every change in this book, Hunter's Mark excluded, because I've never played Hunter, I haven't looked into that one, but every change that affects any class I've ever played, even if I'm sad it's gone, I'm happy for the change because I think ultimately it's good for the health of the game. I have a similar concern to Scott with like future books and like the future direction that Wizards is taking D&D, but it's a different one that ties to the video gamification, and that is we all have talked about how it's awesome. There's certain things that make more diverse choices, more accessibility, but there's also a lot of smoothing out that's happening right now that is good for balance. But what I'm worried about as they try to do this to countless more subclasses is that they're going to smooth things out in ways that make certain classes or subclasses feel less unique. And in this book in particular, there's one that is not really a complaint of mine, but it's something that speaks to this, and that is warlocks now can, when they take their third level subclass and choose a patron, they get a specific set of elements that they can change their attacks into. And previously, that was really only accessible to Order of Scribes wizards, and that made me feel like that was a really special thing that Order of Scribes could do. And now it's not that Order of Scribes is getting its toes stepped on, but as we see more of these things where you can take an ability or feature that wasn't previously available to your class archetype, I worry about we're actually going to see a little bit more of a blending of the classes. And I actually heard this is top of mind because earlier today I was listening to a video about how this has happened to World of Warcraft. And previously, that's a very old game as well. It used to be that you had your specialty and you had to team up with other classes to be effective. And these days, every single class in World of Warcraft can all do the same things. They all have evasion. They all have self hills. And a lot of people are leaving the game because you don't feel special, you don't feel heroic in that moment doing the thing you do best. Now, I don't think we're there yet, and I don't think that this book really has problematized that so much, and I think it is vastly outweighed by the diversity of choices. But I do think that is something to keep an eye on and to be aware of as we move forward. And we may find our unique character differences come from those origin feats and backgrounds rather than from our class, which could be a good thing. But I want to make sure that that I'm leaning into that and not just oh, how can I make the most versatile class out of this using all these other features? Because versatility is great, but so is specialty in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's a fascinating point. I do think that it's important to remember that it's also what each person brings to the table. So, there's some smoothing over, but some people are I'm not good at, in video games, I'm not good at, tanking, usually. I'm pretty good at DPS, and that's it. So you're not going to see me, even if I can tank, if I have an ability that allows me to tank, I'm not gonna do it. But that's an interesting, I hadn't thought about it that way at all.
I'd heard, now mind you, the people I was talking about it with, they're not here. I completely disagreed with it. They were just they were getting into what I said we weren't gonna do tonight, which is Edition Wars, and I was like, I'm not playing this game. My God.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play a game with Thaco. You can't convince me. But I do think that there is, and I think that that's a fear that a lot of people have had no matter what the edition is. And I think that it's valid to keep an eye on it. I agree. I don't think that has happened in this book just because it's gotten so much chonkier and there's just so much more options. But alternatively, the potential for that is there. There is always the thought that could happen. And you always want to make sure that that's not the direction that it ends up going.
Yeah.
So I hope they keep an eye on that.
I would say my one big gripe, and I'll make it really quick. As someone who plays in,
Oh, Z, I'm so
found it
sorry
a little.
we lost you. Do you mind repeating that?
Oh, sure. I would say like my biggest gripe as someone who plays in Artifice campaign is as a class that has been fairly widely accepted in the community, like it feels really silly to make a new handbook and to exclude one whole class. That people seem to like and have picked up. Especially adding pistol as a weapon mastery, but not having artificer in there. And I get that it was in like a more recent book, but I feel like if you're making a new handbook, have all the classes in there. So that that felt a little silly to me. Also, this is a fully derailed thing, but I have to say it out loud. It truly, with no light in the background, looks like Scott is in a weird haunted.
It looks like a haunted mansion.
He does.
Mansion.
That's
Scott, are you
hilarious.
safe?
Are you okay?
Are you?
Are there ghosts?
He is a ghost.
Oh.
My
Run to the Toy Coco.
my one, it's not even a gripe so much as they overhyped the idea that this was backwards compatible. And while I do think that there's a lot of cases where it is pretty easy to go backwards and rebuild, like Theon as a barbarian, everything changed. Like everything changed with that base class. So it's like, yeah, it's backwards compatible, but probably only if you start a new character. Like I can't imagine, like we do this professionally. I understand us changing over at level 17 and we're going to make it work and it's going to be really exciting and cool. I don't know if I would do this in a home campaign. I don't know if I would switch over mid campaign because the amount of juggling to do, like that's a lot on the DM and a lot on the player to completely, like, in some ways change how everything is played. So I think while parts of it are very much backwards compatible and like you can use other books forward, I don't think that it's as backwards compatible as they say.
That's my impression of what they mean by backwards compatible is just that you can still use the other books, and I think the reason why they lean so hard on that message as someone who owns like 15 5th edition D&D books is if all of those were invalidated by this update, I'd be pretty mad.
Oh yeah.
And so at least like the modules are still usable. The Tasha subclass that I already had is still usable. I was able to roll for the base class, but keep the subclass. I think that's what they mean, less so than like it's easy to just like change your character over, because that's certainly not. And D&D Beyond, I think, is less backwards compatible than if you were doing it on pen and paper, for sure.
I do completely agree. Like, and again, like we're being pretty chill about it here. Like, again, I know I've talked with several of you about it tonight. There's probably gonna have to be some cutting and pasting that's gonna happen, and I'm totally chill to do that. God knows I've been playing this game long enough that I've become pretty adept with my imaginary scissors with this, and we all have at this point, goodness knows. But yeah, it's like, hurry up with the errata already. Like, if you're gonna errata the whole thing, can you do it fast, please? Like, fine, I'll give you my money. Just like give it to me quicker, please. And again, I don't have a fix is the other thing I'll say about that. Like, I don't know. I've been through an edition change before. It's a thing. It's a thing. It is what it is, and I get it. I know they're walking a really hard tightrope, trying to make sure everybody is happy as possibly can be. And
yeah, my real test will come next week when I have a sit-down meeting with the players that I'm GMing for, who are only level 2. We've been playing, I think, a dozen sessions. And I told them, a couple months ago, like, this rules changes coming out. It'll be up to 5 of us to decide how we want to implement these changes. And they are not as invested in this game as Adventurers Pack. we play once a month, and a lot of them have much different interests outside of their their jobs and social lives. They do not spend nearly as much time, I know for a fact, thinking about this game as we do. So when we sit down next week and I present them with the changes to all of their class features, that's going to be, I think, a real testament to how it's received to a wider public, at least for the small sample size that I get the opportunity to do this with, because now I have here the two ends of the spectrum, super invested persons who are poring over every comma and every punctuation mark. And I have more casual players who just want to be a bunch of dipshits for a little while, and utilize this really cool fantasy setting that I've set them in. So it's going to be cool to kind of experience the reception to all of this. And it may say, fuck this new rule book. Like, I don't want to utilize this. I want to keep going with what we were. And I'm be like, okay, cool. We'll decide that. But yeah.
Chase your joy. We've said several times here tonight. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun.
With the having players who are level 3 having to deal with this, it is, I think, the best time to do it versus like 17. Like level 2, you've got like a few things. And I have to say also, like, it is, this is not like some sort of, I'm not trying to get like sympathy points here when I say this, but I do mean it, which is that it is a joy to be amongst so many people at the time when this is dropping, who all feel the same level of passion, and we're all like experiencing this at the same time. Because this 10 years ago, some of us didn't know each other. So I'm very thankful for how this is at the moment. And at the same time, this is a whole thing where I'm like, try to put it into other games. For me, if I can offer any sort of, and we can talk, RJ, but I was like, look, this upcoming game, we're just doing weapon masteries. If you're one of the 4 classes who got it, we're going to be doing this. That's it. You also might get a bonus action spell, but that's it. We're not going to do backgrounds. We're not going to do all this. We're not doing. It's going to be baby steps, because there are different. Not everyone is as blessed as those who play on the Adventurers Pack. I know people who probably think about this far too often during the day as they go about their day-to-day life. I have other things to think about. I'm playing Majora's Mask again, so I've got my own stuff I'm trying to work through. But I also, I do think about how I can, be the best player at the table, and what is the most fun, and what is next, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's just where I'm at. That's my advice for anyone who's trying to incorporate these rules into a new table. Baby steps. They're not perfect, and we're still learning them as DMs.
Oh, I have not figured out all the new rules. Oh my god. Working on it.
Why not?
Working on it. I'm working on it. Heck, I did.
What else are you doing?
I didn't have the last book memorized either, God knows.
Oh, no.
Does anyone else have anything else on this topic before we move on? All right, well, I guess this just brings us to the last question I have for the night, which is, what are you hoping is going to be in some of those next books? We've got the Dungeon Master's Guide, depending on if you are supporting a friendly local game store with the pre-release ability late October, or if you're doing this online or virtually, it's going to be November. We're going to get the DMG. Early next year is going to be the Monster Manual, and then after that, we're going to be seeing, like they've done in the past, more supplements. So I know we've already heard a bunch of it before really quickly, so we'll try not to repeat ourselves too much. But yeah, what are we looking forward to?
Well, this is very topical because we're in a Gauntlet stream right now. I am at least excited to see, or interested to see, how they rebalance challenge rating now in the Monster Manual, because we've done 2 seasons of this, and some monsters do not belong in the challenge rating that they're in. like in practice. And so I'm interested to see if they do any rebalancing there or move monsters around or whatever they do. So I'm intrigued. I'm really, really intrigued to see what they end up doing with that.
I can answer it a little bit. As I understand it, no monsters are moving to different challenge ratings. As I understand it, all the monsters are staying where they are. They are updating the monsters.
Yeah.
Is
Interesting.
my understanding. So I think we're gonna see.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So if it was a challenge rating mismatch before, they'll make them more challenging to fit where they were put before,
Or
is that
less
what that means?
challenging.
Or less.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, like
Oh, that's cool.
Bloodhawks.
Those things suck.
Those that was brutal.
the stupid
are
turtles. The stupid turtles that y'all fought for like
Oh yeah.
5 weeks.
Yeah, that was tough too.
Got broken by the turtles there for a minute.
Yeah, that took way too long to get through Turtles. That was
Yep.
just sad.
Damn you, Michelangelo.
But yes, as I understand it, that's the plan for the new monster manual. That's their goal, is to just essentially keep everything where it was, but update the stat blocks, because that also then allows, like what we were talking about earlier, that allows old modules to maintain their relevancy, because then the you just use the updated stat block,
Right.
but the monsters can stay where they are. That's their thought with that. I see that point. At the very least, it means you're gonna have to like have 2 books to confirm the monster stat blocks, which is kind of a pain in the patoot, but at the very least it leaves the story intact, and I understand that point. Again, it's not the most elegant fix. I don't have a more elegant fix.
I don't think anything that requires 3 textbooks or more than that can ever be that elegant. So I'm on the board for their justifications there.
God knows, again, in 3.5, I remember there just being like a literal gigantic stack. At that point, that edition had been going for so long that there was just like a sea of books, and there was no digital support then, so you were just with your hands. So yeah.
Well, that's what I'm excited about, is more books. I'm the Dungeon Master Guide and Monster Manual. I am excited for those, but I'm excited to see what they do with the supplements moving forward. I hope they're not just updating. We're gonna get Xanthar's next, and then Tasha's. I really want to see them like pivot into new modules and new supplemental material. I'm excited for Artificer. I'm excited to see all the subclasses that aren't currently affected get updated over time. I'm not excited to spend a lot of money on D&D books again, but probably won't stop me.
But your money, they want the money. Fine. This is my capitalism.
I think we definitely have some more world guides coming down the pipeline, which is super fun. Like I loved picking up the Theros world guide. I love picking up the Ravnica world guide. Obviously the Eberron expansion was a huge success. I still really want to play in that sandbox. So I think if we're gonna get any more like subclass updates or supplemental material for certain classes, it will come through those types of materials. I also, and I think I've talked about this a couple months ago, but I would love to see in the new DMG a rubric for crafting like legendary items in story, so that you can lay out plot hooks for characters who want, to put together Thanos' gauntlet. Because oftentimes you're given like the stat block for a magic item in a book or in an adventure guide, but you don't always get like how that item was created, what types of magics or efforts were used in its inception. And as a new GM, somebody who's only been handling the game from behind the screen for a little while, like I would love advice on how to go about doing that, because I think that would be a super helpful tool to then implement more structure to the players who need it. So that's my wish.
Oh yeah. I think I want to say that based on what I've seen from the monsters at the back of the player's handbook that are all just like druid shapes, familiars or whatnot. I'm intrigued by what they're going to do because I noticed some changes. For example, in the direwolf, the HP previously was 37. It jumped to 22. Its attack now does 1d10 versus 2d6, and auto knocks prone, no save versus the save with the previous 2014 edition. I know all this because Curse of Strahd has so many fucking direwolves that the stat block got a really good idea about it. That sort of change for me is easier as a DM. Anytime you have less rolls to be made for like the players, like NPC scenarios, that sort of thing, I think that's better. So I'm intrigued how that's going to change. And that seems to be, again, a quality of life thing now for the DM, now with the things that the creatures are doing. And I would have loved if they released everything within 2 weeks or even just at the same time rather than all the players are jacked. Now the DM gets some new tricks, and then we finally get to the monsters. 4 months later, I'm not a fan, but they have their reasons, I'm sure. But who's to say? That's my take.
I will say the thing that I am most looking forward to is going to come in the DM's guide. My favorite section has always been the magical items in the back. It's an incredible place for even not using them necessarily, but just finding inspiration and finding new ideas for things that you can create and include, and just kind of going down that rabbit hole of creation in the magical realm. And so I'm excited to see what that section is going to look like in the new DMG. I'm going to really hope that we get to see some cool new items in there. I love RJ's thoughts on a section for specifically how to craft not just magical items but legendary items. So I'm very much looking forward to that section.
All right, well, I have a feeling that probably on that is going to wrap us on up here on this very special episode of the Gauntlet. I'm very excited to see what everyone is going to do. Again, I know it was said several times tonight, but this is what we do. We do this professionally. So I'm very excited to see this rock and roll and see what happens next with all of you playing in the rooms. And I'm very excited. Again, I really do genuinely feel like a lot of this is quality of life. And I really do feel like a lot of you are going to feel empowered to be doing more things that you've always kind of wanted to do. So, oh yes, last thing on this, not right now, listeners made at the very least. We may see loot cards or spins of the Wheel of the Chaos that now use some more of these there are fun new abilities and things that absolutely will affect that. Maybe some new things will be created, who's to say? I'm not sure because this has all been very theory crafty as it stands right now. We've got a lot of ideas on how we think this is going to work. No plan survives contact with reality. And so we have realistically no idea how this is going to affect stuff or how some of these things are going to feel. But goodness knows if we find something feels fun or funky, fresh, we will add. I don't think that anything needs to go away. Heck, if anything, it's going to make some of those potions and things a little bit easier for y'all to consume and things like that. So,
Itch for a new bad Wheel of Chaos. Master of None. Lose all weapon masteries for 1 round.
Scott, you
That's
monster.
Oh,
You
ouch!
monster.
But also, you did that to yourself.
Master of all, cast Steel Wind Strike.
Love that spell.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's
I
such
can't
a
wait
good
to go.
spell.
I love that spell.
You folks are amazing. I'm so excited to play with all of you in 2 weeks. As a reminder, the Gauntlet is off next week, which is going to give us more opportunity to continue. Again, we still have a few folks who we're working on what's going to happen next because, again, some of these changes have made things just a little bit funky, a little bit fresh. So keep an eye on that. We are very excited for what's going to be happening in 2 weeks. 7 p.m. Pacific. As a reminder, if you've been enjoying what you've been watching here, give us a follow on whatever platform. Jeez, on whatever platform you're enjoying this on. Make sure that you're hitting those buttons to make sure you're engaging with us. Head on over to our Discord if this has been fun for you. And normally I do an after show chat, but that's kind of what this has been. So, but if you want access to all of our fun after show chats, you can subscribe on Twitch, or you can head over to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/adventurespack, and you can find out a little bit more about what we're doing and maybe support us and get some fun perks in the process. Have a lovely night, Tavern folks. Y'all take care, and we're going to see you next time. Bye, everybody.